everybody. What's up? What's happening? Good to see you. Good to be here. Hopefully everyone is doing well on this late night. Yeah, it felt weird. I didn't stream yesterday. And by the way, yes, that is a dog. That's Zeus. He's sleeping over here by my side. Anyways, hopefully everybody's doing well. We're going to try to stream on Twitch again, and we'll see if it gives us any problems. However, I am now connecting via the web socket, so hopefully we will have less problems with losing connection to the chat feed. Anyways, hello and welcome, everybody. So, now technically, I did sort of stream yesterday because I played my Fabulous Ultimate game, which I play on VTT. So in technicality, that Sunday I ran the One Ring game, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday I streamed. Friday I ran my Fabulous Ultimate game, and then it's Saturday. Technically it's Sunday morning here, but you know it's Saturday night. So technically I have sort of streamed for 6 days in a row. Adam says, Derek, I'm taking your silence on our DM's tacit admission that I was correct about Daggerheart being a combat sport game. I did see your post that you sent me. You did say I didn't have to read it. I did see it. I did. You know what? Fuck it. We're here. Let's whatever. You know what? We have nothing better to do, so we're gonna do this. Don't switch my audio figures. Here we go. Okay. So here is the message. Now I'll try to see if there's anything wrong here, but you know, I won't put you on the spot. He says, wait, no, not to the public. Let's talk about what? You know, listen, you just can't come out with the hot fire and not expect people to get, you know, thing. Okay. But I will say this, without getting too deep into it. Okay, put you on blast. Okay, I'll put you on blast. No, again, you know, you're probably not wrong. But anyways, we'll see. So here is what Adam said the other day in a message to me. This was after our conversation about Stone Top Daggerheart. We kind of got into a lot of Stone conversations. It says, I believe Daggerheart was made to be explicitly in conversation with D&D. First, I completely agree with you. They were not making this game in a vacuum. I think they were trying to make a game that was both spiritually a bridge for people who are more comfortable with the D&D style of play, number one. Number two, I think that they were doing that, corollary one, I think they were doing that because they saw it as a way to make people more comfortable in getting into a more, say, narrative mechanic style of game. But also, two, I think they saw it as a marketing opportunity. And secondly, I think they wanted to create a game that was going to be good at running the kind of games that Critical Role, vis-a-vis Matt Mercer and company, Matt Mercer particularly, like to and do play. I'm not a Critical Role expert, as in I barely watch the show because I can't stand it, but it's my understanding that it is long periods of very, 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 very long periods of extensive role playing and characterization and lots of plot and exposition dumps, and followed by essentially more or less very long bog standard D&D combat. So I think that you know, if the idea, as we all thought originally, was that they were going to make a game that would be perfect for running the type of games that they like to run and that they are good at running, that they have made an entire brand out of, it was like, yeah, make a game that's better at doing that type of game. So anyways, so Darrington Press, again, this is back to Adam's statement. Darrington Press took a look at what the average person complained about in D&D, and largely, you know, D&D meaning D&D people, D&D only players, which was combat can be a slog and there are too many fiddly bits after a while. But they also took what people read, the same modern audience, loved about 5e, which is combat, tactical, larger than life, powerful combat. I completely agree with you, and I would be the absolute first to say that Daggerheart, even more so than any other even remotely PBTA adjacent game I've ever seen absolutely has an emphasis on combat. We talk about principles and agendas. Stonetop says, punctuate your characters' lives with adventure. I believe Daggerheart comes out in the opening pages and say, this is a game about combat. So I'm not saying that combat isn't a part of the game. Now you say tactical, larger than life, powerful combat. So this gets to an interesting question as to what does tactical really mean? Now there's two schools of thought on tactical. One is, because larger than life, I think we can all agree, Daggerheart definitely achieves that. You've got high level powers. You mentioned larger than life and powerful. You've got high level powers where you block out the sun. So I think it's safe to say that we're there. Tactical. So what does tactical mean? Tactical means depends on what you want to define it. Some people think tactical means that you get to make choices. Okay, and that those choices have a meaningful difference in their application. Other people think tactical means that the choices that you make will be the determining factor between whether you win or not. Now, it's that latter definition that I kind of have a problem with, because modern games, like the D&D 5th edition that you're referring to, aren't truly tactical, because by and large, the decisions that you make actually do not really meaningfully overcome or change the outcome. Or at least they do in a very small percentage. Yes, your character could choose to, lay prone, take off their armor, and roll around naked in the mud. But for the most part, the game nowadays is so designed mechanically to protect your character and basically guarantee your win. We've heard Mark Seifter on Roll for Combat break down that math many, many times. He has said very openly that Pathfinder 2nd Edition is you basically have a 90, I think I'm not quoting, this is the designer of the game. I think Mark Seifter says that you have something like a 99% chance of winning, a win rate in Pathfinder 2. And that's from the designer of the game. Now, some people would say that win rate alone, you could make all the cool little choices in the world that you want, but if it doesn't actually change the outcome of the combat, which is to say the players are going to win, then is it really a sport? Is it really tactical? Right? If you get to make a lot of moves and a lot of cool decisions, okay, but you're pretty much going to always win anyways, is that tactical? Anyways, a lot of players just want to slay monsters. It's why there are so many murder hobos. Agree. Darrington Press also took a look at the other side of the aisle at PBTA, Dungeon World, FBT land. Now, I do want to take umbrage with one of the little things there, which is I actually think PBTA and Dungeon World aren't FBT, specifically because those are fiction-first games that only interface with the mechanics via the fiction, which is to say, it's not really fluffy bullshit time. And took the mechanics that most deeply added to the roleplay and character development, because the critical role players embellished their stream games like that without the diegetic consequences. Now, a weird thing, this is kind of a tangent to your excellent point so far, is that strangely, there are a lot of people who, so for me, right, the beauty of a game that is fiction first is that you can do something in the fiction and it will have a decidedly mechanical influence on the actual outcome of the game. One of the reasons I love Blades in the Dark is because you could say, I'm doing this action, a prowl action, okay? And depending on how you say it, depending on how you frame it, depending on what approach you're taking and what you're doing, you could influence and affect that role's position. It could be a controlled role. It could be a risky role. It could be a desperate role. So, not for nothing, but like if a player just says, I have to get in there. I'm going to run in. As soon as possible, and I'm going to sneak into the barracks. And I might say, as a GM, this is where personal opinion comes in. I might say, oh, damn, that sounds kind of risky. Maybe that sounds desperate. Sounds like you're kind of desperate. Seems like it's a desperate situation. Maybe I should make it desperate. Whereas if another player simply says, all right, I'm gonna wait for a guard change and then I'm gonna sneak in. And I'm immediately gonna go, oh yeah, you're in a much more controlled position. Right? So anyways, the framework is the way that you say something influences the outcome of it. So anyways, and took the mechanics the most deeply added to the roleplay and character development because the character. But at its core, the Daggerheart rulebook is like 2/3 about running encounters, combats, monsters, skills, environments. That's because, in my opinion, it's drawing deeply upon that combat as sport piece that D&D is so heavily played as in the cultural zeitgeist. We can call it combat as theater, which is fair description, but I truly believe the game is still deeply designed to be about combat, much like 5e. They just slipped in some of the PBTA goodness. It doesn't always work, and it certainly has problems, certainly, but I think they did what they set out to achieve. I agree with you completely, except I still don't think it's combat as sport. I absolutely agree with you that Daggerheart is designed to be a PBTA-like game that has a lot more combat in it than a typical PBTA game, even Dungeon World. And furthermore, I will say that I have played a lot of Dungeon World. I've run a lot of Dungeon World, and it is sometimes difficult. Now, I've talked about this at length, and we're here technically to talk about BXD&D, but it's my channel. It's 1:30 in the morning, so, you know, live with it. What people don't understand about the brilliance of Daggerheart's system for combat are the same people who don't understand why Avatar Legends and its combat exchange system is a brilliant piece of tech. A lot of people look at it and they say, oh, this sucks. And the reason is because they don't understand some of the inherent problems that come about from running a PBTA-style game with a combative focus, which is that moves spiral, okay? And it can be very overwhelming for both a player, but also really a GM once the rolls start getting rolling. You lack... I mean, this might sound kind of crazy, okay? But part of the problem with PBTA is that there is no, like, null outcome, okay? There's no situation where something doesn't happen, right? If a player attacks in PBTA, remember, in classic PBTA, in Dungeon World, there is no monster, you know, I don't get to activate my monster. It's just the player's focus. And what this means, amongst other things, it means a couple of things. Number one, if the players roll shit hot, technically the monsters will never go in a PBTA game. So that's already problem number one. I've seen it happen, okay? And you're there to obey the rules. So Daggerheart solves that right off the rip by basically saying 45% of the time when the players make a roll, the GM is going to get some form of control back because they're either going to fail or more likely they are going to roll fear, okay? So that already solves a huge problem. Second problem is that the GM can get locked out of the game. Fear allows them to get back into the game. So again, it solves both of those problems. Number three, because the monster's attack roll is a GM roll that does not trigger or result in any sort of ancillary move, it means that there is a sort of end state to the back and forth, okay? And that is a real benefit to the situation. Yeah, for some reason lately when I go to hit schedule stream in YouTube, it like starts a stream, which is weird. So anyways, long story short, that is why I think Daggerheart works from a combat perspective. Does it have a little bit of friction sometimes? Yes, because it's still trying to be PBTA. But is it combat as sport? Absolutely not. Is it trying to be like D&D? Yeah. Is D&D combat as sport? No, not really. I don't think so. Hey, what's up?
I am strong, strong, strong.
Thank you. Yes, this is Zeus. Hello, Zeus. Zeus is a 12-year-old mutt. He is, as best as we can tell, a mix of a variety of breeds. Some sort of corgi or dachshund, perhaps. He certainly has very dachshund-like behaviors. But he also has some sort of terrier or weird, I don't know, pit-like characteristics as well. He's very chonky up front, very muscular. He's a very strange-looking creature. We call him a cryptid. Yes. The rub is defining what sport means. I would say the closest analog to Daggerheart is WWE wrestling, as in professional wrestling. Right? Like, that's because you're supposed to think it's real. Right? But, like, no one actually thinks it's real. Right?
Daggerheart tip $2. You took the feet for a dog cam. This is the only point of this SC.
Thank you for the tip. Yes, well, you know, actually, I had this, I had bought this PTZ cam for remotes, and like I used this when I was at GaryCon, but you know, I don't travel that much, and so I was just like, oh, I should just hook it up, and I have a top-down mount where my microphone is, and so I just so like I can, right, like I can. Hello, I can, like, you know, zoom all around here with my camera with my mouse. There you go, buddy. Right, and what's that? Ah, here comes Zeus with the steel chair. Oh, as God is my witness, he is broken in half. And then to further throw fuel onto this fire, this game exists. But anyways. But yeah, so I mean, definitely, I think, right, like in the 90s, you know, you had certainly the 80s, you know, in the 90s, but you had like the Kayfabe, right, and the idea that it was like real. But like, you know, it's accepted though that like it's not like they're actors, you know, like they are athletes. They are doing legitimate physical moves. They definitely do get hurt sometimes. You know, there's a lot of skill that goes into those performances, right? But it's also not really a sport, you know? So like, it's kind, you know, that, so for me, that is what Daggerheart is, right? We all have to, we're supposed to pretend that we're playing a real combat game. Okay. But we all know that it's kind of just made up, you know? Absolutely. I mean, especially when you do things like hitting someone in the face with a chair. I would imagine hitting someone in the face with a steel chair and doing it in such a way that the steel chair bends and breaks and doesn't hurt them would be way harder than doing it in such a way that you did it and did hurt them. So yeah, exactly. And, you know, and of course, obviously, you know, there's insane people like Mankind. I mean, you can say it's fake or whatever, but the fact of the matter is, you know, he did get thrown off. He did get thrown off of the top of the Hell in the Cell. He did fly like 18 feet through the air. He did smash through that desk. I mean, you know, as God is my witness, he is broken in half. So anyways, my point is that I think is what Daggerheart is supposed to be, right? It is supposed to be performative, but that doesn't mean it's any less real, you know? But to call it like a sport the same way you would call, say, Olympic wrestling or, baseball or football, is different, Now, Pumpkin, I completely agree with here, which is that the difference, okay, is that Daggerheart, in my opinion, okay, is WWE of the 2000s, right, of the 2010s, where we can now we can actually appreciate these people for doing what they do, and we can talk about their performance, okay? And it's still kind of considered a little faux pas to like really bring up the point, like nothing matters. Like you don't want to be playing a Daggerheart and being like in the middle of it and be like, well, it doesn't matter if we fight, it doesn't matter if we lose anyways, we'll just surrender, we'll just avoid death, and it doesn't matter. Where'd you go, buddy? See, look, now we can follow him. He can't get away. He's going behind the chair now. So 5e, okay, is D&D. 5e D&D is WWF wrestling, right? Of like the 80s and like the early 90s, right? Where we are supposed to believe, right, that like Stone Cold actually hates Vince McMahon, right? And he's actually trying to kill Vince McMahon, and that, like, you know what I mean? Like, and we're supposed to be like, oh my God, is Vince McMahon dead? Did Stone Cold just blow up his limo? Like, this is actually real, right? Like, but the thing is like anybody with half a brain who's read 5e goes, wait a second, I don't really think you can die here, Anyways, so that's that's kind of my take on all of that. Anyways, so in a way, Bo, I do agree with you, but also kind of disagree with you. But it is what it is. All right. This is true. I mean, shocking, right? The guy who ran the professional blood sports league turned out to not maybe be the nicest gay. Combat is right. So combat is stage, right? So we've used the term combat is theater, but there's something even between it, right? Like I don't know, I think the WWE analogy works particularly well for me. Like there is, like when you watch a movie, obviously there's supposed to be suspension of disbelief, but because that's what I said. Combat is stage and combat is theater are a little bit weirdly different. They are. I do think that they're a little bit different. So, but the idea though of the pro wrestling, and I think this is the idea of Daggerheart, by the way, is now I'm not like trying to like shit on anybody. It's a skill. It's awesome. It's cool. Okay. But people don't turn out for Olympic wrestling, like real wrestling, the way they turn out for pro wrestling. And why? It's real, right? It's actual competition, right? People are actually good because it doesn't look cool because people aren't flying off the top ropes. It's realistic. It's actually sport. People are actually competing. There's a winner and there's a loser, right? But it's boring, right? People would rather go see WWE. And I'll tell you another thing. I'm not a big fight guy. Okay. Like I grew up, I did martial arts. I'm a black belt. I'm a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo. And I used to do tournaments and all that other stuff, but I'm not a big blood sports guy. Okay. And, and in the 90s, I was, into WWF like everybody else. Right. Well, not everybody else, but a lot of people. But what I do though, is I still, what I'll do, my friends will go to the local casino for the UFC fight nights. They put it on big screen and there's my friends like to bet on it or whatever. And I'll go to that UFC fight night sometimes. And let me tell you something, that's real. As far as I can tell. But the fact of the matter is some of those fights are some of the most boring things I've ever seen in my entire life. And I would rather be watching a fake WWE match rather than a real match that is boring as shit. So that is what Daggerheart is trying to do. Okay? Now, people do this in 5e. They just do it by cheating. They do it by fudging. Daggerheart says, okay, what if we just did it and made it part of the game instead? And we all, just like in WWE, like pretended that it was real. Right? And I think that is very brilliant. And I would rather go watch that, And again, I'm not like saying again too. It also comes down to like, do you respect this? So I'll give you a classic analogy. Okay, I'll give you a classic analogy. I am not a huge sports guy. Okay, and I hear a lot of people go, the best game of baseball is a pitcher's duel, right? Final score 1-0. Hits, 3. 3 hits, 1 run, right? Versus like 2 hits, no runs. Like that's a pitcher's duel. That's a perfect game of baseball, I don't want to go to that game. I don't want to go to that game. That game sounds boring as shit. I want 10 hits. I want double plays, but I also want, fucking walk-off grand slams. Like I want big explosive action, and by the way, so baseball seems to agree, right? Because it turns out that baseball weirdly is a sport, but it's also an entertainment industry, right? Which is this, so they have to like serve different masters, like it'd be like watching a tennis game, right? Where it's all aces, right? And you might be like, wow, that's really skilled, right? Tennis is actually probably my favorite sport to watch, actually. Right, Platinus, you don't want the NFL game that's 30-0 in the 4th, right? So, this is where we talk about like the structure of like, how do you do that without cheating? Because a lot of people go, but the problem, you start WWE-ifying your game, right? Your player is going to be like, but it's not real anymore and it doesn't mean anything. And so what a lot of GMs do, which has become really embraced by the community, is this idea of illusionism, where you are secretly manipulating everything behind the curtains so that you make sure that you arrive, with the home team is down by 3 in the 9th, right? And then you come to bat and you get the runners, you do the sacrifice bunt and you advance the runners into scoring position. And it's you have one last out. And then, oh my God, he hits a double. And, well, and this is a whole other thing, right? Because you are both the participant and the spectator in an RPG, right? Which is weird, but you are. It's kind of strange, but you are both participant and spectator, which is interesting. Right. And then Platinus, amen. We cannot trust the players nor the dice to produce an interesting outcome. Correct. That is actually true. And I would say you can't trust the GM either. But all right, I had a couple super chats. I'm sorry I missed them. Let me see here. Okay, so Adam says, I fair and balanced take. But since we disagree, we have to build an entire semantic ontological framework of sport or cage match. You choose. Okay, fair enough. And then Ben Nelson, thank you, Ben. What did Ben say? Ben said, I feel like Daggerheart combat was intentionally designed to be PBTA wearing a combative sport trench coat, and a lot of people miss that. And I think you are right. The problem is that the trench coat was either too good or too convincing, or people saw a trench coat and they never looked underneath it. And so they just assumed that underneath it was just 5e. And so that's where you end up running into this kind of weird problems, Okay, but believe it or not, we are actually here to talk about BX Misadventures in 5e. Don't worry. The dog is coming back. What's up, buddy? That right there. That's my whole life. All right. So, spoiler alert. From the last time. So the last time that we played, the last time that we read through, the group had left the random dungeons and had entered into the Caves of Chaos. And while in the Caves of Chaos, Boromir, unfortunately, died. Additionally, one of the hirelings, I know some people, at least Cinnabos, was like, this is stupid. Well, luckily, one of the hirelings with the stupid name of Ball and Cock, one of them died. So we don't even have that person anymore. So this is an update from the GM. Boromir's loss was devastating to the table, Pippin also died, but Pippin was a poorly rolled character who the player liked, but had just been written off dead as soon as they first got rolled enough. But Pippin had been with us since the beginning, and the player was really sorry to see Pippin go. We left the table with heavy hearts that day, I can tell you that. So as you go out tonight to celebrate your weekend, please pour a little ale on the ground for these dead homies. Sam, slain by a skeleton's blade. Gimli, slain by a skeleton's blade. Aragorn, thought dead by a giant poisonous toad. Bard, killed by dastardly pit trap. Legolas, murdered by orc spears. Pippin, slain by brutal hobgoblin blade. Boromir, very appropriately, punctured by a hobgoblin's bolt. And Cock, slain by a brutal hobgoblin blade. Cinnabus, I don't disagree with you, but I do find it hilarious that those names ruin your immersion, or immersion, but Legolas and Boromir and Frodo do not. All right. By the way, like we had Arwen replaced Legolas, Faramir replaced Boromir. And here's a current update of XP. So Mary, who's been with us from the beginning, is rocking 918 experience. I think they need 2,000. I think halflings need 2,000 to level. Gandalf and MU, I think, needs 2,500, so it has a while to go. Someone says, Mary's almost halfway to second level. Damn it. I've jinxed him, haven't I? By the way, remember, Mary is rocking a magical shield as well. All right. The Caves of Chaos, Cave E. The Fellowship of the Bling is Strider, a 6 hit point thief. Gandalf, magic user, 5 hit points. Pretty big pimpin' magic user. Frodo, 8 hit point halfling. Nilfin, a cleric with 6 hit points. Mary, a halfling with 8 hit points. Gollum, a level 1 thief with 2 HP. Faramir, a level 1 fighter with 4 HP. Arwen, an elf with 8 hit HP. And Ball, a halfling or a hireling man at arms. All right. 2 new members. What race is Gollum? Halfling? No. Gollum is a thief, which technically means he is a human. In basic D&D, all classes were races and races were classes. So in other words, halflings were all halflings. That was your class and your race. It was just one and the same. I believe Faramir is going to wield Usurper. Here you go. Look at this. Right to answer your pumpkin. 2 new members join the Fellowship. Faramir, brother of Boromir. He is strong and skilled, but sulky and underconfident. Another scout has joined as well. A strange little creature named Gollum. Faramir claims his brother's magical sword, Usurper, which, for those new to the game, new to the channel, is a +2 sword that the group had found. And so the Fellowship penetrates a dense copse of trees and discovers Cave E in the notorious Caves of Chaos. They gather about the cave mouth, and Gollum volunteers to take the point. Gollum smells sour odor as he enters a cave grotto. Gollum darts out of the cave, rejoins the Fellowship. Gollum see bear. An owl bear? Mary demands. Yes, sleeping owl bear. Adventure over. Fellowship go back to Rivendell now. Strider and Gandalf step aside and quietly discuss the matter. Finally, a course of action is determined, and with much protest from Gollum, the Fellowship moves into action. Strider and Gollum slip back into the cave. The Fellowship not far behind with lantern shuddered, ready to spring. Strider puts his hand on Gollum's shoulder to halt him as they enter into the gloomy cave. Indeed, there is a sleeping, bear-like creature in the corner of the grotto. But Strider doesn't want to risk approaching to get a better look. He and Gollum quietly pull out hand axes and prepare to throw. No! Strider calls. He and Gollum hurl hand axes at the sleeping beast. Axes thump into the hairy mound, and the lantern is unshuttered. Light fills the cave grotto, but the hairy beast doesn't move. It's nothing more than a big bed fashioned from a mound of leaves and a bear skin. Gollum, kill owlbear. Strider lets out a chuckle, which is immediately interrupted by a monstrous roar. A massive ogre charges into the grotto from a passage from the eastern wall. It brandishes filthy claws and wears a bearskin on its back. Ogre! Gandalf yells, pull together! The savage beast charges across the grotto, running straight for Gollum. Gollum scrambles out of the ogre's grasp and darts behind the fellowship on all fours. Strider jerks his sword from scabbard and lashes out at the ogre as it moves at Gollum, but the blade doesn't penetrate his thick, bare skin covering his shoulders. Merry, Faramir, Ball, and Nilfin intercept the raging ogre. The ogre roars as Faramir's mighty sword, the Usurper, lashes it, but the stout monster gives no ground. Ball rakes the ogre's forearm with blade, eliciting another roar. A couple of arrows soar harmlessly across the grotto. Bonk! Ball blocks the ogre's filthy claw with shield, and Faramir and Ball slash at the thick-skinned beast again and again. The ogre is bleeding badly, covered in lacerations and bruises, surrounded by blade-wielding adventurers. More arrows whiz past the yellow-skinned Hulk. Then Strider comes in low and slips his sword beneath the ogre's ribs and drives it in deeply. A few flails and a roar, and then the ogre is lying on the floor, unmoving. 125 XP. Gollum killed the ogre. Further examination reveals the cave is composed of 2 adjoining grottos. The one which the ogre charged from has a big leather sack, which contains a nice cheese, a barrel of fine brandy, and assorted coins worth 449 gold pieces. Buried under a pile of old bones, the Fellowship uncovers some arrows, which Arwen's Detect Magic spell reveals to be magical. 6 magical arrows plus 1. A potion of invisibility, and a cleric scroll with a Cure Light Wounds and Hold Person spell upon it, which Nilfin, the cleric, pockets. Arwen also locates a secret door in the western wall of the cave. The Fellowship stacks up around the secret portal and charges in. A stone-worked chamber with barrels of water, a small table, and a barrel full of crude goblin spears. 6 goblins are here, shocked to suddenly see a party of armed adventurers coming through the ogre's secret door. The goblins barely have time to grab spears before the Fellowship unleashes a volley of stone and arrow. 2 goblins drop dead, pierced with arrows. The remaining 4 little creatures lower spears and charge. Wooden spears clash and rake against spear, shield, and mail. A goblin gets a good jab in on Nilfin, deeply piercing his thigh. Red blood splurts across the room, covering the Fellowship. Nilfin goes to the floor. Nilfin is slain! Faramir hacks a goblin in 2 with Mighty Usurper, but the archers can't get their line of sight past their friends. Seeing their 3rd companion fall, the goblins break into flight and disappear, running away down dark southern passages. 30 XP. Let us leave these caves of chaos, Gandalf says, and never return. With heavy heart, the Fellowship collects Nilfin's body and returns to Rivendell. Each member leaves with 64 gold and 86 XP. So just when the cleric finally... By the way, remember, level 1 clerics don't even get a spell. So they finally got a scroll, and then they died immediately. Now, again, perspective means everything. So one of the perspectives is, remember, if you just assume that your character isn't some main protagonist character, you're a lot, you feel a lot differently when you die. But also remember, by the time this party gets back to Rivendell, whoever is playing Nilfin will literally have already made a new character. It literally takes... especially if you know what you're actually doing, but even if you don't know what you're doing, it literally takes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to make a character in BXD&D, but also it's a lot of fun to roll ability scores and hope you roll really well. All right. So they're going back now to just literally random dungeons. The Vaults of Irakle the Chaotic. We have Strider, Gandalf, Frodo, Merry, Gollum, Faramir, Arwen. It looks like we have a new character, Bjorn, a fighter with 9 hit points. Nice. That must be the new character. Note, someone on the Dragonsfoot forums noticed that I missed a sack of 250 GP in the Goblin Guard Room where Nilfin died. I missed it because it's sort of buried in the text. This means next week I will be handing out a sack of 250 gold and the XP that goes with it. At Rivendell, A rugged warrior wearing a bearskin joins the fellowship. He introduces himself as Bjorn. Elrond has heard rumors of a treasure-laden vault, and so the fellowship sets out for adventure. Fun side note, so we are going to be doing in Discord, we're going to be doing a backstory card generation for our One Ring group to generate their backstory elements. And to do that, we've been working with polls from the patrons, input from me as the GM, and then also from the play group itself. And one of the groups that got generated is actually like a sort of like a war band or a war party of Bjornings who have crossed west of the Misty Mountains, right? They've left the Vales of the Anduin where they lived, right, between the Misty Mountains and Mirkwood, and apparently are there like on some sort of like vengeance or quest to kill or hunt down orcs, or maybe a specific orc chieftain. You know, kind of left. You know, draw maps, leave blanks. You know, I didn't really specify it, but I think that's a really cool group to introduce because it's like they could be allies, but they could also be dangerous enemies. You know, they're not necessarily 100% aligned with the party, but you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I think that'll be a cool group to see if there's any interaction or what gets interacted with. All right. So we are now headed to the Vaults of Irakle the Chaotic. Opening the vault door to find a stonework passage leading eastward deep into the vault. Phosphorescent fungi grows in periodic clumps, providing shadowy illumination in the dungeon. 40 feet in, they come to a branch in the passage. Choosing the north passage, the fellowship continues. Gollum, scout! Gollum scurries down the corridor, staying about 40 feet ahead. Strider follows 20 feet behind. After traversing the corridor for some time, Gollum comes to a door. Now, you're starting to notice something, by the way. If you've been following this for a while, notice a couple of things. Number one, notice that over time, that the characters who rolled really well, especially with hit points, right, are still in the party. And so what happens is it's kind of like evolution, right, or like natural selection pressures, right? Over time, like the super low hit point characters or the people with really garbage stats kind of get filtered out. And so over time, it looks almost like the hit points are going up, but they're really not. Secondly, somebody obviously rolled a thief, rolled 2 hit points. Jokingly, I think Pumpkin correctly identified, named them Gollum because, you know, they're this weedy little creature. But also notice that when you have kind of a crap character with bad stats, maybe a horrible hit point roll, you choose something like thief, some sort of expendable scout type character. Notice that Gollum is now leading, right, the scouting because he is, quite frankly, expendable, you know? And that's not just like a role-playing thing. That's just like as a group of players, you know, you're like, look, I'm the person with the crap character right now, right? Because it's not about your character. It's about the party, right? It's about the crew. And as long as like the crew continues on, right, that's worth it. And so for you, like, it's a weird role. And it's something that I think modern day, like Snowflake, you know, everybody's the main character syndrome maybe aren't used to. But like, there's this idea that like, you're like, look, I'm not the main character here. You know, I'm almost here to be the canary in the coal mine for other people and their cool characters who actually have a chance to maybe make it, you know, but I accept that my character kind of sucks. And I know that there's like a, you know, obviously, by the way, I'm not praising this or condemning it. I'm just simply saying it's a vibe. And, you know, for some people, it's really interesting. And it's the same people, by the way, like I've talked about this before, but like when I used to play, most of the main edition that I played as a player was 3rd edition D&D and Pathfinder 1, those 2 editions. And I played a lot of wizards, and it was pretty common for me, especially in 3rd edition, to cast maybe haste in the first round of combat and literally do nothing else the rest of the combat. Like Derek was very content to just let other, you know, I cast haste, you know, I buff the party. They're all attacking twice as fast. You know, they're moving much faster. They've got bonuses to AC or whatever. And their reflex saves. And, you know, if I have to, whatever, I will. But for the most part, I was content to just, you know, not waste my spells unless I needed to. And I know that's like a very different mentality than we're sort of used to, right? Which is like, oh, I should be doing something every turn, and the wizard needs to be as involved with every combat as the fighter does or as the cleric does. I just don't feel that way, and I've described before about I grew up playing EverQuest, as was like my first major MMO. Meridian 59 was actually my first MMO, but that EverQuest was the first like popular one. And I was an enchanter, and a lot of times in a group, I literally didn't do anything in a fight. My character entire purpose in a group, aside from casting buffs every 10 to 20 minutes on the party, was if the party pulled too many monsters at once, where there was like, oh, there's 5 monsters. We can't take 5 monsters at once. The enchanter basically is designed to be able to like put them to sleep so that, you can deal with them one at a time. So if the party was doing it correctly, I didn't actually need to do anything. Like if we had a good puller who would only pull 1 or 2 mobs at a time, I literally almost had nothing to do. Right. Clarity, please. You could even, like, my mana bar would be full and I still wouldn't even cast my damage spells because they were so inefficient and bad, and quite frankly, it just didn't even matter. I would just keep clarity up on the casters, keep haste up on the melee characters, the DPS characters, and I would just watch the XP and the loot roll in, and occasionally, I didn't even charm. Because why risk the nonsense of the charm? I mean, the only time I would charm is if I was soloing or maybe duoing, or if we were doing something really, really, really difficult, and, having a charm would have really, really helped. I didn't even fuck with that most of the time. But occasionally something bad would happen. Monsters would spawn at a weird angle. The puller would get in trouble, and suddenly you've got 3 or 4 or 5 monsters, 5 ink. And, then I'd stand up and I'd take care of fucking business. And instead of getting a wipe or having to, train to zone and give up our, grind spot or whatever we're doing, we would win that shit. So very satisfying. But yeah, anyways. Let me just say this, Platinus. The charm meta is coming. Okay? Just wait. All right. So, Gollum and Strider, our 2 thieves, are scouting ahead. Gollum notices 2 suspicious stalactites hanging above the door. He scurries back to Strider. Stalactite not grow on stonework. What? Strider is confused at first, but after advancing with Gollum and inspecting the stalactites, the 2 fall back and rejoin the fellowship. Some kind of living creature. They moved a little after I watched them for a few minutes. Stalactites not grow on stonework, Gollum adds. The party advances carefully and puts a couple of arrows into the stalactites. Indeed, it falls from the ceiling and splats, leaking out a fluid and letting out a squeal. A few more arrows and both of the piercers are dead. If you're new and you don't know what a piercer is a type of monster that used to be probably more commonly known, maybe even than, say, the Mimic. But like the Mimic, and like the gelatinous cube, it is a genre of creature known as the trap monster, right? A monster that is quite literally just a living trap, and literally doesn't even make any sense or exists only in a dungeon. And Strider, or a piercer, is just like a living stalactite that drops from the ceiling and pierces through you when you move underneath it. They're slow as shit. They don't really, they can't fight back. They don't like have like their movement speed is like 1 foot a minute or something like that. It's kind of ridiculous. They're literally just like a living trap. The other ones that you might not know is ear seekers, I think is what they're called. They are like little worms that live in wood. And when you put your ear up to a door, they crawl in through your ear canal and eat out your brain. That's another one. Slimes, by the way, are another example of some kind of a trap creature. In fact, in original D&D, they weren't really even creatures. It was more of like a living hazard more than a creature. Anyways. The door is wooden, but appears to be stuck. The thieves listen, but hear nothing. Bjorn gives the door a couple of kicks, and he and Mary charge in. The room is filled with lit candles, and something is scrawled on the floor. Hold up, Strider says. He and Gollum slide in to look for traps, but find nothing. Strider doesn't want to admit that he cannot read common, but thankfully Gollum spares him the embarrassment by reading the scrawls aloud. Jade Cathedral shall be found when Gates of Ashes is opened and Blade of Avarice is drawn. Strider responds. Another door in the room is locked, but the bolt is turnable from this side, so Gollum unlocks it and opens the door. The Fellowship enters the room, and a few of them search for secret doors or anything else that may be here. Gollum strikes off down the dimly lit passage, with Strider not far behind. The passage winds a few times, heading north, when the sound of drums fills the corridor, startling Gollum, who scurries backwards. The two thieves wait in the passage. The Fellowship catches up, and Arwen moves forward and casts Detect Magic. The part of the passage lights up where the drum sound emanates. Some sort of illusion, maybe, Gandalf muses. Something to frighten intruders. Two shadowy figures approach from the north. The Fellowship readies weapon, and Gandalf calls out to the approaching pair. Hail! Please identify yourself. The two men continue to approach without word. Why do they not answer? Strider says. Fire a warning shot, Gandalf orders. Arwen knocks an arrow, and twang! An arrow soars past the approaching men. They do not flinch, but instead pick up their pace and begin shuffling towards the Fellowship. Zombies! Bjorn yells out. The Fellowship fires a volley as the zombies shamble closer. Merry Slingstone smacks one in the face, but they keep coming. Closer now, Strider and Gollum hurl hand axes, and another volley of arrows is fired at the zombies. The axes thud harmlessly off of the walking dead, but an arrow and stone find their mark. The zombies close, reaching out, lunging towards the Fellowship. Merry and Bjorn move to intercept. The mysterious sound of drums continues to thunder, providing music to the desperate dance of combat. Bjorn slams his mighty two-handed sword into the zombie with a blow that would have felled any other being, but the mangled zombie keeps coming. Merry slashes into another zombie, but the short sword can't stop the hungry monster. Frodo takes a shot and finally fells a zombie, while Strider's hurled hand axe finally finishes the other, 40 XP. But the drum sound continues to thunder in the hallway. We must move on, Gandalf says. This racket may draw more walking dead, or worse. Terrified of the mysterious drums, the party backtracks to the candlelit room with the odd words etched in the floor. They then backtrack nearly backwards to the entrance, where the passageway first branched. Stalactites not grow on stonework, Gollum cries, pointing out two more stalactites hanging from the ceiling. A few arrows later, and the piercers are removed. 14 XP. The Fellowship journeys along Eastern Corridor for nearly 20 minutes when it finally takes an abrupt turn and dead ends. Perhaps a secret entrance here, Gandalf muses. Arwen and the thieves begin prodding the dead end, but find nothing. I do not wish to return to those drums. Let me take a look. Gandalf and the two hobbits inspect the dead end passage, but also find nothing. Let us not delay as children, Bjorn says, and face the drums as men. And so the Fellowship begins the long pack track through the winding passageways. They finally come to the place in the long northern passage where the thunderous sound of drums echoes from the very walls. Gollum and Strider search for traps but find nothing, and so the two thieves dart ahead. There appear to be no harmful effects, so the rest of the Fellowship follows behind. Gollum takes the lead, Strider behind. Finally, the passageway makes a hard turn, and Gollum comes to a door in the southern wall. He searches it for traps. Then they listen to the door. The door is locked and made of strong wood. Note, original D&D is just a lot of like moving down passageways and searching for traps and listening at doors. It's really not that much combat. When the party catches up, and then when there is a combat, you like all die. So when the party catches up, the fighters kick in the door and assault the room. A mysterious, tremendous chamber that is largely empty. A strange mural, and this is also, by the way, why I, in my dungeon design, number one, don't like random dungeons, and number two, why I try to make sure that there aren't these sort of endless empty rooms, right? I want people to actually have stuff they can engage with that means something. A strange mural on the south wall depicts a map of some kind. Gollum and Strider enter. The room is too large to search for traps in its entirety, but the two attempt to scout out where the safe passages may be. I'm very confused. Why is my chat not working? Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry. Gandalf inspects the mural. It is a map of dungeon corridors, the very rooms and corridors the Fellowship has explored in the dungeon and nothing else. It somehow knows what rooms and passages we have explored. I wonder. Gandalf touches the mural, his fingertip brushing against the depiction of the very room they are in. Gandalf vanishes and then reappears in the center of the room. Gandalf! What happened? I believe that the mural serves as a portal of sorts. I believe it can teleport us to any location we have been, even directly to the entrance. This is a boon, Gandalf, Strider says. Are you sure? My field test would seem to indicate so. Part 2, tomorrow. That number one, that mural idea is pretty sweet. That's actually pretty cool. Shinobi, absolutely nothing happened, Shinobi. I literally have zero plans for Memorial Day. I'm not doing anything. I have no plans. I expect it's possible that my sister will probably message me on Sunday or Monday morning and say, hey, you know, me and Ed, that's her husband, or, you know, we're going to be cooking some ribs or some hamburgers. Mom's going to come over. Do you want to join us? But I don't have any expectations. The Vaults of Irakle the Chaotic, Part 2. Our Fellowship is Strider, Gandalf, Frodo, Merry, Gollum, Faramir, Arwen, Bjorn, and Ball. Okay. Another thing to note. Back then, parties were a lot larger. You might have multiple thieves in your party. This group has 2 thieves. If a thief had even a 50% chance to be able to, say, find or remove a trap, if you had 2 thieves or 3 thieves, you might have a 75% chance or an 88% chance to do it. So one other reason for some of the low percentages in old school D&D is because the assumption was that you were going to have 6 to 10 people in your party. So, you know, many hands make light work, you know. All right. So they found a mural that lets them teleport to any location that they've already been. Gollum finds some more piercers. Stalactites not grow on stonework. Pointing out a cluster of 6 piercers clumped in the corner. No need to waste arrows. Strider points out the bizarre creatures and warns everyone to steer clear. 42 XP. There are additional doors to the south and east. The party chooses the south door, and hearing nothing, Faramir kicks in the door and the warriors charge in. 14 hobbits are startled when the Fellowship charges in, fumbling for short swords and scrambling to find a battle line. Gandalf tries to calm the startled hobbits. We mean no harm, little ones. The hobbits take the opportunity to finish drawing their weapons, and they tighten up their line. They hesitate to attack, but their little jaws are still set, and their eyes are narrowed for combat. 5 in the back line even have knocked arrows. Gandalf, we apologize for the abrupt entry. It appears that the door was stuck. The hobbits breathe a sigh of relief and lower their weapons. Soon they are sharing pipe leaf and conversations in a circle on the floor. The hobbits tell their tale. They entered the dungeon yesterday, taking the same passageways that the Fellowship did, braving the sound of the drums and avoiding the clump of piercers in the mural room. After searching this room, the doors in here just loop back to the room. The hobbits decide to eat and rest for the night. Unfortunately, they overslept and have only been awake for the last hour. They intend to leave the dungeon, saying they have only looted 5 gold so far. Gandalf asks a particularly hardy hobbit if he would like to join their band for a half share of any treasure found. And thus, Fatty Bolger accepts the offer and joins the Fellowship as a retainer. After finishing up the pipe leaf, Gandalf instructs the hobbits on using the mural, and soon they have all but Fatty Bolger teleported to the exit. The Fellowship then chooses the untried eastern door, avoiding the cluster of piercers. The wooden door slides to the side, and a winding passage leads beyond to another door. Hearing nothing, the Fellowship quietly opens that door. Another massive chamber, but this time 6 hobgoblins are gathered here in a circle. They haven't noticed that the door is open and are surprised when the Fellowship enters and thunders into the room. A withering volley is unleashed into the monstrous humanoids. Howls erupt from the humanoids as arrow and stone slam into them. One falls unmoving to the floor, and then the remaining hobgoblins turn and flee, taking one more round of ranged fire from the Fellowship. 2 more of their band falling dead with arrows from their backs. The remaining 3 hobgoblins bolt across the room and exit a door in the eastern wall. 90 XP. The room is mostly empty. Something is scrawled on the wall in dwarven runes, but no one has the ability to read it. Gollum and Strider search and mark a hallway for safe passage. Finding nothing of value, they move through the open door east, where the hobgoblins fled. In the passageway, they find the rest of the hobgoblins dead, impaled by feasting piercers. Well, hobgoblin no understand. Stalactites not grow on stonework. The party takes the long passage, which eventually turns south. We are most fortunate to have found our way illuminated by this strange fungus, says Gandalf. The south passage continues seemingly forever. Gollum takes the far lead, with Strider not far behind. Passageways eventually wind to an open doorway in an eastern passage. Gollum sneaks through the opening as Strider moves behind. He sees a couple of skeletons chained to a wall and a ladder ascending to a wooden platform above. Gollum makes his way towards the ladder, searching for traps. Strider stands ready in the doorway. Gollum ascends the ladder, but finds nothing on the platform. According to my map, the north door should lead back to the hobgoblin room. The western door leads to places unknown. The western door opens onto a long passage, and Gollum and Strider take the lead, following the passage to a left-right intersection. They choose left, which winds around in a large meandering circle. As Gollum rounds the corner, he spots 4 zombies shambling towards him. They reach out and stumble towards the little thief. Gollum falls back. Then he and Strider fall back further to the party. The party sets up for an ambush, waiting for the zombies to round the corner. Arwen, Frodo, and Fatty Bolger pull bowstrings. Merry begins swinging his sling in a tight circle. The zombies round the corner. Twang, twang, twang! Arwen is the only one to hit. The zombies stagger, but continue. The Fellowship opens up again as the zombies begin shambling down the hallway. Twang, twang, twang! Only Fatty's arrow sinks into the decaying flesh, and then the zombies are upon them. Faramir and Bjorn take the lead, intercepting the malignant monsters. Bjorn hacks down one with a mighty 2-handed sword, and Faramir struggles with another. Frodo and Arwen put a couple of arrows into Faramir's zombie, but it feels no pain and fights on. Bjorn hacks away at a zombie, and Arwen and Frodo put 2 more down with arrows. The remaining zombie lunges for Bjorn, but Faramir's mighty blade, the magic sword usurper, rends the shambler in twain. 80 XP. If only my father had been here to see that, laments Faramir. The party moves forward along the meandering passage, trying to make up for time lost while falling back to ambush the zombies. They finally come to a door, solid, wooden, swollen, and stuck. The boys check it for traps, but find nothing. Thum, thum, thum. Something begins hammering at the door. Gollum yells out. The Fellowship backs away from the door and takes defensive positions. Part 3 tomorrow. So, catching up with chat here. Adam says, this is one of the only parts of OSR Retro Clones that I wish had some quality of life updates. There was a lot of great modernization, but the 2 in 6 chance thing, I house rule away. Fair enough. What's up, Shadow Legion? Yeah, we are just Saturday night, late night stream, just kind of shooting the shit. And I've just this week been reading this really old, like 15-year-old post of somebody running through this plus a bunch of old random dungeons from old school 1981 basic Dungeons and Dragons, but with like a joking party recreating the effects of the Fellowship of the Ring. One thing that's really interesting. Oh, I see this. Gotcha. Right. You mean just because you have so fewer people now, Adam? Is that what you're saying? That actually is a good house rule. It does specifically reference that. So, one thing that I really want to specifically highlight here. Do I have my? Let me open up my. Let me open up my PDF. Let me open up my PDF. 100%. I'm right there with you. Okay. So, so one thing that I really want to highlight about BXD&D, which may not be entirely clear. Again, there's a lot of things that are changed, you know, that are subtle, and we may not really respect them or acknowledge them. Okay. So we have here on the left movement rates. Now, normal movement, this is outside of combat. You can see that if a character is carrying very light encumbrance, which is represented in this game by coins, right? Everything in this game, weight is in coin equivalent. And that makes sense. Crazy as it may seem, is because you're going to be adding and subtracting a lot of coins. That's the most thing. But you can see that your movement per turn is 120 feet. Now, most people are going to have some form of armor. And most parties are going to have people who are in, say, metal armor, right? For example, Mary wears plate armor. I believe Arwen wears plate armor as well. So this party moves 60 feet per turn. A turn is 10 minutes. And the maps back then were drawn at a 10-foot scale. So if we go to, say, well, this is Keep on the Borderlands, but if we go to the back of the basic adventure module, okay. Oh no, here we'll go to the Keep on the Borderlands. So we'll go to the Keep on the Borderlands. Where the hell is it? We had the map. Okay, so if we go to the Keep on the Borderlands map, okay. So let's say that the characters were at H, okay. This is Cave H. So you enter from Cave H. Well, one square is 10 feet. So one square right here. Then 10 feet right here where it says H. That's 20 feet. That square is 30 feet. That square is 40 feet. That square is 50 feet. And if we move into room 35 or we start heading up the stairway here, that's 60 feet. Moving from the cave entrance to this stairway would take you 10 minutes. Right? That's crazy. Like in modern D&D, in Pathfinder 2 or whatever, okay? Not even kidding you, right? That would take 12 seconds. And that's like while exploring. I'm not talking about during combat. I'm talking about because during combat you can double move and triple move and shit. I'm saying like if you have a normal movement rate of let's say 30 feet, right, or 25 feet or whatever, in normal movement you basically make one move action per turn. You're just kind of walking at a normal pace. That's 30 feet per round. That's 30 feet per 6 seconds. That's or 25 feet per 6 seconds or whatever. So that's roughly 50, 60 feet every 12 seconds. So let's kind of extrapolate that a little bit. Okay, so let's say you're playing Pathfinder 2 or D&D, and your movement rate is 25 feet or 30 feet every 6 seconds. Now remember, in combat, you could, or even outside of combat, you could be dashing and moving 60 feet in a round, but that's you hustling, right? That's you jogging or even running or sprinting. But let's just say you're just quote unquote walking, which is to say you're taking one move action per turn. So you're moving 30 feet in 6 seconds. So that means in a minute, you're moving 300 feet. Okay? So if we were playing modern D&D, okay, right? If we go from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's 10 to here. Okay, so it's roughly 10, 20, 30, 40. Let's just say that this is about 500 feet from west to east. Now, obviously, there's no exact passageway that goes all the way from west to east, but this map is roughly 500 feet from left to right. Now, for starters, this is at a 10-foot scale. So in Pathfinder 2 or Modern 5e, D&D, or Pathfinder 2, this would be 250 feet because it would be a 5-foot scale. So already we're at half, you'd be at half scale. But in this game, it's 10 feet. So this is a 500 foot from left to right. This means that in our modern game, where we're moving 30 feet in 6 seconds, which means we're moving 300 feet per minute, it would take us 1.6 minutes. All right, let's just round up. It would take us 2 minutes to move from the left side of this map to the right side of the map. 2 minutes. Now, 500 feet in basic D&D would take you 8.3 turns, which would take you an hour and a half. So contrast an hour and a half with 2 minutes. And you get kind of a scale and a sense for how and why the scale of things like torches mattered. You know, in modern D&D, you know, in like in old school D&D, I think torches lasted for an hour. So, you know, and we're not even getting into it, by the way. Every combat in basic D&D always took 10 minutes. Every 50 minutes of exploring, you had to break for an hour, for 10 minutes to take a rest. So basically, really, in an hour of 60 minutes, you only got 50 minutes. You only got 5 turns of actions in an hour. So long story short, a group might enter into Cave H. They might make their way down to room 35. That's 10 minutes. They might search the room. That might take 10 or 20 minutes. So we've been in here for 30 minutes. They might make their way up the stairs. That's 40 minutes. They might take a look at this door. That's 50 minutes. They take a break. That's an hour. They have a random encounter. That's a 10 minutes. So now we're at 70 minutes. They open up the door. That's 10 minutes. That's 80 minutes. They come into the room. There's a fight. 90 minutes plus a break. Now we're at almost close to 2 hours. They backtrack. Hour 30 minutes or 130 minutes. This room, say another 140, 150 minutes. Back the way we came. Maybe the GM says, oh, you can move a little bit faster. So now we're 160 minutes. They come back to the cave entrance. It's now been close to 3 hours that they have been in this dungeon. There was a challenge mode. It was sort of like a min-max car op realization that jokingly people started trying to figure out in Pathfinder 2, which is that a lot of the really good buff spells in Pathfinder 2nd Edition last 10 minutes, particularly the spell Heroism. There's a number of spells, but Heroism being particularly one of them. And it lasts for 10 minutes. And the idea behind the Heroism spell is that it lasts long enough that you can basically cast it before a fight, and it'll last throughout the entire fight. But then it won't, but then after the fight's over and you start taking, 10-minute turns to make treat wounds checks and healing yourself up, that it's basically good for one fight. But there were a bunch of people who but what if we ran the entire dungeon in 10 minutes? What if we entered into this entire dungeon map, right? We're standing out here in the cavern floor out in the ravine. Right outside, we cast Heroism on everybody, our highest level spell. We buffed to the gills, all the 10-minute spells. Could we do this entire dungeon and all of the combats in less than 10 minutes? And what the Pathfinder 2 min-max people discovered is that, yes, you can. Because, it'd be like, okay, it's, so 10 minutes is 600 rounds. So they'd be like, okay, it's 2 rounds to get to here. It's 3 rounds to get to here. We get into a fight. The fight only takes 3 rounds. Okay, after the fight, we cast a couple heal spells. That only takes 2 or 3 rounds. Okay, we're only down 9 rounds. We have 600 rounds of duration, so we still have, 589 rounds left. And they would just try to see if they could literally do this entire dungeon in one 10-minute span of time. And what they discovered is that you basically could. Whereas obviously between all the stops for resting and random encounters and fights and exploration, it would literally take you, dozens and dozens and dozens of hours to just go through all of these things, even at the pace of play, you know? So anyways, and someone made the great point, which is, Adam, is correct. The idea is that you are moving through a unexplored, dangerous, dark, hostile environment. You know, I don't think any of us has ever really explored a cave network. All right, imagine an ancient cave or castle, or decrepit, you know, dilapidated, condemned building. That would be already, that was pitch black. So already horrifying. And then you don't have a flashlight. You have a torch, which I can only imagine completely sucks. I've been in dark environments with a flashlight, and that sucked. I can't even imagine how bad a torch would be. Also, there are things in here that are legitimately here to kill and eat you. Also, there's traps that will kill you instantaneously. So yeah, like the mentality, I think, is a completely different one. You know, nowadays we're like the big damn superheroes, nothing can ever kill us. Why should we be afraid? And the base assumption of this movement rate was very much based on the idea that you are basically very, very slow and very, very cautious, and trying to be quiet and trying to be stealthy and trying not to make a lot of noise and taking a look at all of your environment and all this other stuff, you know? Makes sense, Garblack. Right? You just, you know, it's two totally separate, you know, almost two totally separate ideas between the idea of them. Yes, an abandoned nuclear bunker in pitch dark, full of irradiated zombie mutants who want to eat your face off. Correct. All right. Thumb. They have a cave troll, somebody said. All right, part 3. The Vaults of Irakle, the Chaotic. Again, we have Strider, Gandalf, Frodo, Merry, Gollum, Faramir, Arwen, Bjorn, Ball, and Fatty Bulger. By the way, Fatty Bulger has 1 hit point. All right. Thumb. Something starts hammering at the door. Gollum backs away, and the Fellowship takes defensive position. Wham! The door opens, and a group of terrified, heavily armored dwarves charge out. Their eyes are wild with panic, and they stop dead in their track, shocked to see the Fellowship standing outside of the door. Gandalf says, "Fear not, dwarves, we are friends." "Don't be fooled, lads," the lead dwarf yells. "These are more of Irakle's minions. Attack! Khazad I Manu!" The dwarves pull swords and level shields. Merry and Faramir form a front line of steel in the narrow passage, and the two sides clash in a thunder of iron and bone. Arwen arrow thumps into a dwarf, and it goes down with a grunt. Then Gandalf chants the arcane words, and the sleep spell takes effect. 7 dwarves fall sleeping to the flagstone floor. And though only 1 dwarf remains, he is consumed in the frenzy of combat and presses the attack on alone. Merry deflects 2 blows from the dwarf's blade from the magic sword shield, then stabs the assailant deep in the stomach. The hobbit and dwarf stare each other eye to eye for 1 moment, and then the dwarf falls to the floor with a quiet sigh. 90 XP. A dreadful turn of events. I fear these dwarves were merely in a state of panic, or they would not have attacked. At least only 2 were slain, Frodo says. Gandalf pens a letter of explanation and lays it on one of the sleeping dwarves' faces. Then they open the smashed door. Another room. A huge stonework room and empty. Glowing fungus covers the walls and floor. Several dead giant rats are scattered about the room, as well as 2 dead dwarves. A furious battle must have occurred here. It appears that the dwarves dropped a couple of sacks on their hurry to flee the room. Strider examines. 1,000 copper pieces, a deep blue spinel, and an eye of agate. Total value, 515 gold. I consider that loot ours by rights of combat, says Bjorn. It is only fair, Gandalf says. In the future, those dwarves must choose more carefully who they wish to attack. The party now decided it would be a good time to exit the dungeon, so they begin the long trek through the winding corridor and quiet chambers. After some time, they round a corner and encounter 10 approaching dwarves. The fellowship readies themselves. "This vault belongs to Irakle," one of the dwarves says as they approach. "Surrender your weapons and treasure, and we will take you to him so that he may decide your fate." "I think instead my great sword will decide your fate right here in this passage," Bjorn growls. And the dwarfs lunge with mighty battle axes, clashing in the narrow confines of the corridor. Bjorn and Faramir take the front, with Arwen and Frodo firing from behind. Bjorn rends a dwarf and it sputters to the floor. 2 arrows sink into the one fighting Faramir. But the tough little dwarf stands strong. The battle rages on. Battle axe clashing with shield and sword. The dwarfs pile harder and harder into the fellowship. Game fucking fights aren't so easy when you don't have nuclear sleep, right? But Bjorn and Faramir refuse to give ground. "I can't get a shot." Sorry, I was banning somebody. "I can't get a shot," Frodo yells. Thunk! Arwen's arrow lands in a dwarf's chest, and it goes down kicking and bleeding. Bjorn brings the great sword down hard on another dwarf, felling it as Faramir savagely clashes with another. More dwarves step over their fallen comrades. And someone from Twitch, Cal, some person was spamming in chat, swinging battle axes wildly in wild arcs. Bjorn smashes another with a greatsword, and it flops to the floor, nothing more than ragged hunks of meat. "Focus, Faramir, focus!" Gandalf chides as the warrior's magic blade fails yet again to find its mark. "I begin to sympathize with this father of his," Gandalf mutters under his breath. A couple of arrows soar harmlessly over the dwarf's head as the battles rage on. Faramir finally drives the mighty blade usurper into an oncoming dwarf. "Good, Faramir! I did it!" Faramir smiles. Only 5 dwarves remain. The fellowship drive into their wavering line. Faramir fells another, and though only 4 remain, the dwarves are not craven, and they will continue the battle. Lunges, feints, and parries are made, but neither side gains ground. Arwen and Frodo struggle to get line of sight. A dwarf cries out as Arwen sinks yet another arrow into its arm, and Frodo nicks another with an arrow. The enraged dwarf points at Frodo and charges the line, trying to get at the little hobbit. Bjorn intercepts the berserk dwarf and splits its bearded skull with great sword. Faramir intercepts another and finishes it with the magic blade. 2 dwarves remain. They grit their teeth and prepare for glorious death by arms. Ah! The dwarves bellow as they charge with axes held high. Clang! Crash! Both dwarves fall dead to the ground. Faramir and Bjorn take to knee to begin catching their breath. They find 54 gold on the dwarves, 100 XP. "Well done, everyone," Gandalf says. "You really pulled through in the end, Faramir." After a moment's rest, the party presses on. They eventually pass through the room with ladder and platform into another winding corridor. They travel for a bit when 11 giant rats bolt down the corridor towards them. The party is startled as the filthy, gnashing rats run past, legs snapping and biting at everyone. The fellowship yells out and stomps and snaps and jumps in confusion of the rat swarm. "They bite Gollum!" Gollum cries out, stomping and scurrying as 2 of the big rats chew on his shins. They overpower the pale little thief, dragging him to the ground. "Gollum! Gollum is slain!" The fellowship hacks and slashes at the fury vermin darting around their feet. 4 rats are smashed. 2 continue gnawing at Gollum's body, and the others snap at feet and knee. Both Bjorn and Merry yell out as the vile rats pierce through their armor. More rats are rendered. Only 4 remain. The 2 chewing on Gollum leave to fight. 2 more are slain. Merry is engaged with the last 2, and then finally, the final giant rats are slain. "Alas, we went too deep in the dungeon," says Gandalf, looking at Gollum's chewed-up body, "and the poor little fellow couldn't make it out." Finally, they return to the mural room. The mural room now shows a large expanse of the dungeon, every corridor they have explored. They each touch the map at a place near the exit and are teleported away. After paying Fatty Bolger, each member of the fellowship leaves with 76 gold, and 143 experience points. Return to the Vaults of Irakle, the correct character tomorrow. One post says, I love Faramir's inferiority complex and Gandalf feeding into it. Another thief sacrificed. Oh, that such is their lot in life, man. Look, the game knew what was up because going back to it, we've shown this before, but note that to get to level 2, a dwarf needs 2,200 XP. An elf needs 4,000 experience points. Even a fighter needs 2,000 experience points. Okay? A magic user needs 2,500. More than even the fighter and the dwarf. Not as many as the elf. Because the elf is basically a wizard fighter. And just gets the best of both. And they can wear armor. Like, they are literally both broken. Okay? However, clerics only need 1,500. And thieves only need 1,200. Okay? So, think about this. Right? Roughly speaking, I mean, obviously basic only goes to level 3, but assuming it doubles, right? A level 4 thief needs 4,800 experience points, which means that by the time an elf is level 2 at 4,000, a thief will basically be level 4, more or less. So, you know, it's... the game understood that. Now you might say, well, wait, clerics though, they get great armor, they get spells, they even get pretty good hit dice. Remember, in a basic D&D, fighters only get D8, so clerics at D6 get, you know. So why are clerics 1,500? Well, you know the answer. You know why clerics don't need a lot of experience points to level, even though it's a great class. Again, they get to use great armor. They get to use shields. They get to use heavy armor. They've got turn undead. They eventually get spells. And remember, creatures in this game, right, might not attack you, and then they might flee, but not undead. Undead always attack, and undead never flee. So the fact that a cleric can come in, by the way, there is no turn attempts per day. Clerics can turn an unlimited number of times per day. So, again, you know, but who the fuck wants to be the cleric, right? Like you know, like that's basically what it comes down to. And the game's like, it understands that, and you know, it knows that. This was a far cry. 3rd edition was such a, you know, Codzilla was such a big change in the mentality of the game. Somebody praised Inframan's forum avatar. Oh, hey, look at that. That's me. That's me. A post from me. Apparently, I said, for the man-at-arms, is he as a retainer or is he a mercenary hireling? Because I thought hirelings don't go on adventures, that sort of things. Got it. He is a retainer. All right. Anyway, that's funny that we just came across mine. A post from me. Now, this is a younger Derek asking questions. How many adventures do you go through in a night? If by adventure, I assume you mean a single foray into the dungeon. And he says, we get about 6 to 7 hours in on our session on Saturday. By delve, I usually mean 1 entry and 1 exit. Some of these might literally only take 20 minutes. And this is literally old school Derek just asking a bunch of questions on the forums. So for those of you wondering, so my question is, how does, you know, I was like, what are some of your time saving tips. And he says, no detailed player mapping allowed. This is easily the biggest time saver, shaving an hour or two from each session. Detailed to scale mapping between mapper and GM takes tons of time. Instead, reading out exact room descriptions, mapper drawing it, asking for clarifications. Where exactly is this door? Where exactly is this room? The GM gets out of the chair. And I've done this before myself back in the day. Detailed map serves very little purpose other than to give the mapper a clear layout of the cool symmetry of your dungeon and maybe help a small amount with the secret doors. Whatever benefits is not worth the sheer amount of time wasted. I do not give exact dimensions, and I seldom pause to correct a map. The player maps are usually a series of quick lines and squares with a few notes. It's more than enough for the players to find their way. So this is a big advice. Players are allowed to use miniatures, but for monsters, I have simple numbered tokens that let me toss them quickly on a draw map. Declaration phase can be slow and confusing with lots of players. I use declaration cards. Each player keeps 4 or so cards that say melee, range, withdraw, retreat, cast a spell. At declaration phase, each player tosses down a card and we roll initiative. This can save over 5 minutes once per round. Again, as I've said before, young Derek was just like you guys, yes. Young Derek was just like you guys, which is why... That's why I literally have these cards, because, 15 years ago or whatever, I learned from people on the internet, just like you all. And I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to steal that, and I'm going to start doing that. So, cut unnecessary bookkeeping. Awarding prime requisite bonuses at the start of level, have pre-made equipment packs available with a cost for resupplying those packs. Fudge free always plays faster because you have faster resolution. No haggling with equipment vendors. No town chit chat and trying to roleplay tavern scene. No phases where the old characters don't trust the new guys. No endless trying to figure out how the new characters join the group. We do not do any recruiting scenes. I use a turn sheet that reminds me when to check for wandering mountains and when torches and lanterns are burned out. Encumbrance is eyeballed rather than by the coin. This isn't my choice, as I think encumbrance is worth bookkeeping, but the players will just not cooperate, so I just let it go. This does, incidentally, save a boatload of time. This is one of those situations where I do think the modern-day system of like slots from some of the more newer OSR-type games, I actually think is way better and a lot more quick and fun and more just intuitive. Exactly. I keep a lot of spare dice around so I can roll multiple attacks at once. Players are required to each have their own set of full dice. XP for treasure only. This means coins, art, silk, finery. I do not give cash or XP for everything not nailed down. I do not give 4 XP to players for stripping 10 rotten padded mail vests from the back of dead goblins. Instead of THAC0, I have taught the players to think in terms of combat bonus because the math is a bit easier for all of us. This has no effect on the game's actual mechanics and even still uses descending AC. When players are carrying on about the upcoming Star Wars trilogy, I use this time to roll HP for possible wandering monster hit points or for monsters I think they are about to encounter. Basically, I use player time wasting to my advantage. Unless they are speaking about something I really find compelling, then I join the discussion. So, great advice. And I was like, obviously I incorporated a good chunk of that into my play style. And, and then 15 years later, now I'm literally reading it to you. You're literally seeing me ask questions on the internet. So it's kind of fun. All right. Return to the Vaults of Irakle the Chaotic. This will probably be our last one that we'll do for tonight. The Fellowship of the Bling is Strider, Gandalf, Frodo, Merry, Faramir, Arwen, Bjorn, Tom Bombadil, level 1 cleric, and Ball. The Fellowship planned for a return to the Vaults of Irakle. Gandalf did not relish penetrating even deeper into the deadly environment, but the teleporting mural would be able to return them to their last point explored, an opportunity that they could not pass up. Gandalf also felt that Fatty Bolger wasn't pulling his considerable weight. He's an unnecessary appendage, Gandalf told Elrond, so Elrond summoned Fatty to his chamber. Yes, Elrond explained. We're cutting back on our staff. Just not enough XP to go around. If we find ourselves in need of an overwrite hobbit, well, anytime soon, we'll send someone out to the Shire to let you know. And so Fatty Bolger was dismissed from service. The Fellowship of the Bling journeys back to the Vaults of Irakle. Entering, they make their way through winding passage, an occasional room. They come to an open door, the room with the mysterious message scrawled on the floor. Listen, Strider says. Something is scurrying down the corridor. Rats! More giant rats! The Fellowship runs into the room and closes the door behind them, but the door is swollen and damaged. Faramir is barely able to close it in time. Soon they hear the sounds of rats scratching and chewing at the door. 84 XP gained. We must move quickly before they get through. Soon they pass through the corridor with the mysterious beating drums, eventually winding their way to the mural room. The party examines the map of the dungeon. They decide to teleport to the room where they encountered the frightened dwarves and dead giant rats. Each touches the description of the depiction of the room, and they are soon whisked away. Poof! Everyone teleports. Dead giant rats still litter this massive room, but the dwarves are gone, including the dead ones. A south door and east archway are the only unexplored exits. But Gandalf, after examining his map, realizes the north door will save them some time on their return trip. They choose the south door, Strider taking time to search for traps and listens. Remember, Gollum is dead now. Hearing nothing, he tries the door. It's stuck. Wham! Not anymore, Faramir says. Fighters charge in first. Someone has scrawled words on the eastern wall. The scepter of flails shall be lost when the stars fall from the sky. A pile of rotten fruit lies in the corner. Several doors line the walls, 3 unexplored. Strider checks a pathway for traps as the party moves closer to the western doors. As Strider moves to the door, it slowly opens and a zombie staggers in. Another follows behind it, and they immediately charge at Strider. Strider falls back, and the Fellowship unleashes a volley at the impatient dead. Agile Monk, I'm not sure who you're trying to at me. Are you trying to at me there, Agile Monk? Good to see you, Agile. An arrow thuds into one, and a stone bounces off another one. Okay, there we go. Okay, he was trying to say it. Derek reads us all to sleep and gives us Tolkien moments. That's what I try to do. That's what I try to do, buddy. An arrow thuds into the stone and bounces off another one. But the zombies continue forwards. In the name of the great Gygax, shouts Tom Bombadil. Begone! But the zombies are not deterred by Tom's show of faith. As the zombies near, the Fellowship fires off another volley. Arwen's arrow. Oh, I must have missed when you came in, Agile. Or maybe I didn't. I don't remember. It's confusing. Whenever to read things and then keep up with chat, it is confusing. But good either way. You know what? If I did say something already, either way, good to still see that you're still here. All right, so Tom Bombadil tries to turn the undead, but he fails. As the zombies near, the Fellowship fires off another volley. Arwen's arrow sinks right into a pale forehead, and the zombie drops like a sack of bricks. A couple of stones and a hand axe slam into the other one, but it lunges forward, hands clawing at Bjorn. Then the partially opened western door flies wide and slams against the wall. Note, the door is being flung open. And it is slamming against the wall. You might say they slammed the door open. It's an old school KOLC cut, by the way. 4 vaguely human-shaped blob men charge in, radiating evil and malice, wide, wet eyes and grasping claws. The souls of the damned, Tom Bombadil cries. Lemurs! Lesser demons, basically. Part 2 of the Return to the Vaults of Irakle the Chaotic tomorrow. And tomorrow it shall be. Because we'll quit there for the night. Because that's a cool... Because now they're still fighting zombies, and now they're being attacked by 4 lemurs. I don't even know if lemurs are in basic. I'm looking up the monster stats on a lemur. Like, can they be attacked? Nobody knows. Yeah, I didn't think so. That must be from that random encounter thing that's not in this book. By the way, yeah, zombies, by the way, have 2 hit dice. So that's why the reason why they have 2d8 hit points, right? So, you know, because the old way that monsters worked was basically fighters, you know, that's why fighters have d8. I read it as lemure to differentiate it from the animal. So I've said this before, but one of my favorite, and of course, obviously too, their morale is 12, right? They don't run away, so they're just really nasty. But one of my favorite, let me see if I can bring this up here. One of my favorite, right? So this is a lemur, and then this is a lemure, okay, which is a in Roman mythology, the lemurs or larvae were terrifying, malevolent spirits of the restless or malignant dead. Okay, so in D&D, a lemur is the lowest possible rank of devils in the 9 hells. They are shapeless, oozing blobs of rotting flesh, expendable meat shields in hell's infernal armies. Right. So, you know, obviously D&D took it from the Roman mythology. Right. Well, one of my favorite examples of this is in one of the early Magic the Gathering sets. One of the cards was called the Hylopterus Lemur, and the artist thought it was a lemur, not a lemur, or lemur, or whatever you want to call it. So they drew it like this. And, you know, the lemurs looked harmless until they descended on my troops. Within moments, only bones remained. So it was originally supposed to be a hateful spirit of the dead, but the artist drew it as a winged little creature. Instead, it was supposed to be basically this, but that's not how they drew it. But this is from Ice Age, so this is from 1995. So this was, you know, pretty early in Magic the Gathering's history. But it's one of my favorite like art flub in Magic the Gathering, where it's like, oops. That's a great question. I wonder how it is actually supposed to be pronounced, if it's Latin. Rees. Lemures? Is that how? Lemurs.
Lemures.
Lemures, okay.
Lemures.
Lemures. Oh, we learned something new every day.
Lemures.
We're learning something new today. Interesting.
Lemures.
Lemures. All right. Like furies, but lemures. Like a lemon fury. Lemures. It goes for a while, Ben. This is part 1. There's a part 2. Never saying it like that ever. I don't care if I'm wrong. Old Magic art is amazing. It's incredible. The soul of the game to me is dead, but that's fine. I mean, it's still, in my opinion, like the best game of all time, but it is dead, you know. Yeah, it's closer to the way you say it than I, which is just a lemur. I don't care if I'm wrong. I'm never saying it like that. All right, fair enough. That's okay. It's a made up silly word anyways. It doesn't matter. That's funny. Old magic art. Love it. Anyways. Well, what I was going to say, though, by the way, the reason that I actually have, I was going to say this earlier, the reason that I have this set up is because I want to be able to, start adjusting so that when I do my, my fellowship, or not my fellowship, when I do my One Ring play for, when I do my Moria the One Ring solo play, right? I can have a, you know, I can have a an overhead cam so that we can easily see, you know, my dice and whatever else I'm drawing or whatever else I'm doing. I mean, yes, obviously having the advantage of the doggo is a bonus. There he is. Just back there sleeping on a pillow. All right, buddy. So, Ben asks, is there an ETA? So the answer to that, Ben, is that I need to get. I'm in the process of launching 4 new campaigns. So, like, I just launched the One Ring game, and then I need to. I'm in the process of getting my Blades game kicked off. I still have to figure out Avatar, and then I still have to figure out where I'm actually even going to be running my Daggerheart game. So obviously kicking off 4 new campaigns is taking a lot of work on top of my normal streaming. And then I was like, oh, I'm not going to stream that much this week. And then I ended up streaming. Now this is the 5th time this week I streamed, and I did a Roll for Combat stream. So, and then, like I said, I played the One Ring on Sunday, and then I played Fabulous Ultima on Friday. So I've just been pretty busy, busier than I expect. And we're 3.5 weeks out from, let's see, today's the 24th. So 1, 2, 3. Yep, we're 3.5 weeks out from NightCon. So I also got to get, you know, I got to get some stuff done for that. So my guess is it will not happen until after NightCon. No, that's great, Agile Monk. So Agile Monk, by the way, wants our Kickstarter was selected as a project we love. We launch on Tuesday next week. We are excited. Yeah, Agile Monk. I mean, you know, again, I'm gonna be kind of like in a run up for, but you know, for whatchamacallit, but you know, definitely reach out to me as you get close, because you know, I'd be happy to you know, to throw a spotlight and you know, to discuss some stuff with you. I know we've talked about that a little bit in the past, but now that we're, you know, here, happy to give you, you know, depending on how involved, you know, you want me to be, but you know, at the very least, I'm happy to give it a shout out and talk about that. No, I'm in the process of getting that set up right now, Cinnabos. My guess is from the people involved with those other games. And again, this is me just guessing. My guess is that the Avatar game will probably be recorded for either Patreon or for wider release. And Daggerheart also will probably be recorded for Patreon or YouTube release. I don't know if it'll be, you know, full public YouTube, but definitely for Patreon. Don't know about Blaze and Dark, just because there's a couple of people in the game, like Roman and Insight, who I don't have a lot of you know, play and experience with, and I don't really know their style as well. On the Patreon, so I can't say how, you know, comfortable they are with, you know, with being on the, you know, being on the telly, as they say. It is a lot of games. It is a lot of games. It is. No, I'm not into. Yeah, no, I'm not into. I'm not into horror or investigation. I mean, I think it's cool that people are doing stuff with Daggerheart, though. You know, I mean, I think that's really awesome. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, buddy. I mean, you know, I mean, again, I'm not saying that I have a lot of. It's not like I'm some massive channel with a ton of pull, but you know, if I can even just, you know, give it a couple of shout outs, you know, I'm happy to do that, you know, or whatever, just to kind of put a spotlight on it. We don't have to do like a full involved sponsorship pledge thing. You know, I'm not saying that you need to go down that road, but I'm happy to do something little and small, certainly, you know, just to give it some spirit. I'm happy to do that just because, you know, for a member of the community who is putting something out there. I mean, I'm happy to give it that kind of, optics in that respect. Correct. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see them all too. And it is a long shot that everyone's going to be comfortable. That being said, I think a lot of people are much more comfortable with the idea of it going to the Patreon, right? Because going to 200 plus people, because I mean, the Patreon is 575 people, but it's very unlikely that, you know, all those people are going to watch it. I think a lot of people are just concerned about it being out there and, you know, it's in the part of the public domain forever. And some, you know, I don't know, someone might find you and people aren't comfortable with that. But when it's a small, narrow, selected group, you know, we have a paywall. I think people would get a lot more comfortable with that, you know? Well, you know, Adam, listen, I got rope-a-doped into that. Okay. I'm not saying I'm not, I'm not saying it won't be fun. I'm not saying that, but you know, but you are correct. Bunk beds are not it. let's just put it that way. Bunk beds are not it. I mean, again, I'm not super picky. Again, I lived in the woods. I mean, granted, at this point, that was, you know, 8 years ago or whatever. But you know, I lived in the woods for the better part of a year. I'm certainly not the most picky person. But hell, when I went with Roll for Combat to PAX East in Boston, there was a goof up at the hotel, and they only had the one room that had a single, basically like slightly larger than a twin bed, and you know, obviously Stephen Glicker got that, so I slept like on the floor of the room the entire time we were at PAX East. So you know, getting a bed is great, you know. But you know, it's fun, it's cool exposure, and you know, it'll be fun to be part of that. But that being said, and again, I kind of got a little blindsided. You know, I'm in the middle of a live stream, and suddenly these things are happening, and there's people telling me stuff, and then, you know, Steven's signing us up, and it's this whole thing, which of course makes it even more funny because people love to see me, you know, squirm and see me be whatever, not uncomfortable, but you know, be uncomfortable, I guess. But a lot of the presuppositions of what people think is good about a gaming session are not the things that I think are good about a gaming session. You know, like, again, no shame, right? I mean, you know, it's your whatever, you know, whatever floats your boat. But you know, the people who run Dungeons and Cabins being like, oh, it's so cool. We have these incredible, you know, complicated adventures, and they're all laid out and they're multi-part, and you know, and you get to explore the adventure, and as you learn more about the plot unfolding, and you have to go talk to other people about the plot unfolding, and then you know, you get to the next part, and everyone's like, oh man, that sounds so cool and awesome, and I'm just like, I hate adventures. Sorry, I do. So yeah, let me know. Let me know. I mean, I can't imagine that they would force you to stay on property. Pumpkin says, Derek, are you telling me that a hard railroad with a ton of gimmicks and novelty aren't your cup of tea? They are not. Actually, you know, that's actually really funny that you say that, Pumpkin, because I think people would be maybe, I mean, I try to be very honest about this, but I think a lot of people would be very disappointed running a game with me, because so much of my games are very tropey, and they're very stereotypical, and they're very resonant right? And I feel like a lot of adventure designers, writers, they use the term writer, right? Are always trying to create something, clever and novel and brand new, and we've never seen anything like this before. Whereas I'm 99% of the time, like someone will be like, you mean, oh, like kind of like the Rohirrim. And I'll be like, yes, exactly like the Rohirrim. But, they're kind of like Dothraki Rohirrim, right? Right. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. I got it. That's my vibe. Like I am not a novel or clever GM in that way. I don't, and almost kind of on purpose. I don't try to make things that are shocking or new or strange or weird or people don't know what they are. That's a reason why 99% of the time I use zombies, skeletons, ogres, trolls, orcs. I just use things that people know and have a resonance to, and they understand intrinsically, what that means and what that monster feels like. And yes, there are some weird monsters, but they've become part of our zeitgeist because they've just been part of the hobby for 50 years, and I acknowledge and accept that. But this is one of the reasons why when I, pull out some random, monster from some random bestiary, and I'm like, oh, it's a Nemahiath, and you're like, okay, what is it? And I'm like, okay, well, it's an incorporeal spirit undead from Pathfinder 3 or Pathfinder Bestiary 3. It is an undead guardian, swirling swarm of shackled spirits that rage against their fate. It's it's an incorporeal spirit undead. I'm not using this. I'm just going to use a wraith. Because everyone knows what a wraith is, I don't need every monster to be brand new. You disappointed I didn't bust out the Fiend Folio? I mean, to be fair, we did get the Githyanki. I mean, there are some classic monsters from the Fiend Folio. The tome of creatures both malevolent and benign. Such legendary creatures such as Giant Bat. But yeah. Don't sleep on the Al Mirage, which is like a horned bunny rabbit. The Bone Snapper, the Blindheim, a yellow frog-like humanoid with huge eyes that shine like searchlights. And again, I get it. Like there's a time and a place, for weird new monsters, but I don't there's some adventures where, like every encounter is with like a brand new, crazy, weird monster that no one's ever seen before. And it's just like, it's just too much for me, It's just too much. Yeah. Yes. He awakened and went back to sleep. Hi. What's going on? So, anyways, I prefer to use again, stereotypes and resonance and tone that we can all kind of just share to. And again, I'm not trying to be a novelist. I'm not trying to be a groundbreaker when it comes to writing anything. So when I'm running a game as a GM, maybe that's another reason that people struggle to GM, is because they think that their job is to create an incredible story. And I don't think that's your job as a GM. I just don't. In fact, I think that it's maybe even harmful to do that. I think your job as the GM is to run the game and manage an experience. But the story, that's not something that's in your purview. And I know that that's one of the reasons why a lot of people choose adventures, because they go, well, I can't create a good story, so I'm going to hire a professional who created a good story for me. But man, I just find that to be so problematic with nearly everything that role-playing games stand for. But not only philosophically, but even just the mechanics of them. The game is full of random fucking tables and random checks and random saves and, you know, and random attacks. Like, it's how do you do anything when you have a game that's just full of randomness? It just seems like it's just crazy to me. Anyways. So the TLDR is at some point we will get these games kicked off. We'll get some more actual plays on the channel, and then hopefully we'll get the Moria game started as well. So, and again, I want to do a cool integration with that. I still want to do my Wilder Feast mega game too. But man, I just got to learn how to. I got to learn how to like make a Foundry system. I know I've got a couple Foundry devs who are members of the Knights of the Last Call Patreon who've offered to help me out, but it's still a big project, you know. I need to offload my ticket bot too. I pay like €500 a year. I actually need to message him because it seems like he double charged me, but the amounts were different. So I'm like, are you charging me twice for something? But you know, €500 a year just to run my stupid Discord bot is crazy. I need to like learn how to do that too, so I don't have to pay that. Again, it was all fun and games when I didn't have a job, you know. It was just like, whatever, you know, just $500. Well, no, €500 is like $600. Yeah, whatever, fine, $600. You know, it's $50 a month. But now I'm like, I need that money. So, and you know, I mean, there is nothing wrong with liking adventures. They're obviously very popular. Same thing with, you know, modern day video games. Like the kind of, you know, Baldur's Gate 3s or whatever like that. Obviously one of the most successful games of all time. I have almost no interest in it. But also too, you said that, you know, but adventures are really good for one shots, two shots, and new groups. And I don't really use new groups. I don't really play that with many new groups, and I don't really like one shots or two shots. So there you go. Well, it's everything. It's paying for the bot. It's paying for the hosting. It's paying for, like, you know, the ongoing service or whatever, you know, it's everything. But yes, I mean, I'm sure it is expensive and whatever, but you know, the guy made the stuff for it. I mean, this is not new. I've been paying this for years. I mean, I pay, just everybody charges everything's $1 million. That's all, you know. I pay, like I said, I pay close to, I probably pay close to I don't even know. I think I probably pay close to $400, maybe. I was going to say $500, but it's probably close to $400 a month. I probably pay close to $400 a month just for Foundry and Forge hosting for our various Forge servers that we use for Northern Reaches, Dragon Tide, anybody else running games, all the other stuff that we do, the community servers. So I pay probably close to $400 a month just for that. And then 50 or so for the Discord bot. We also pay for like Me6. We pay for Knights of Last Call, Google hosting, Google Drive, Zoom, Zoom, Epidemic. That's where we get our music licenses from. Adobe, it's like 100. I think my expenses a month are probably somewhere around, like, just to run this YouTube channel, are probably like somewhere around like $1,000 to $1,200. And then also, you know, if I pay my talent, Bob, additional people, but you know, maybe $1,200. And that's way down, because I mean, it used to be closer to $3,000 a month, again, plus salaries, because I used to have the studio rent, but I still somehow pay $1,200 a month for mostly just for SaaS, right? For software as a service. That's almost entirely what I pay for nowadays. I think everything I pay for is SaaS, and it's somehow like $1,200 a month. It's crazy. I mean, I wish I could figure out a way to cut all that down. significantly. But there's just, I mean, I'm bound to the technology. There's just not that many options that I can use for, you know? Anyways, Claude Code can do that for you for $700 a month in tokens. Yeah, I mean, I'm again, I have a comp sci degree, but you know, I haven't like really programmed in like 20 years. You know, I use my powers for data science. I mean, like, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to like make like a, you know, a stack development that I'm going to send out and sell. I mean, I'm just trying to make stuff for my own personal use. So I have no problem, you know, using horrible AI spaghetti code because it's just for me. But yeah, that sounds expensive. Like, it sure does add up quick. Well, the problem, Ooze, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, you should get GIMP, you know, or you should just use GIMP, or you should just use Affinity. The thing is, I do think Photoshop is a great software, and like Photoshop 2026, like they add a lot of stuff. They add a lot of really cool new features, and I actually think they're really cool, and I use a lot of them. So, you know, I don't really want to be using Photoshop 2015. So, but I wish there was an option for me to, you know, maybe buy a new version of it every couple of years instead of having to, you know, no other option, right? I don't think you can buy Office anymore, right? Isn't Microsoft Office now just subscription based? I think maybe I'm wrong, but interesting. You play almost exclusively with a different combination of people each week, and it's in person. So we largely lean on adventures to try new systems. We do have a sandbox Land of Eam/5e/Daggerheart campaign too. Wait a second. Is it one system or is it 3 systems or whatever? You know? Oh yeah, my Creative Suite membership is like 100 and I don't know. I think it's like close to $100 a month. So, but I use Premiere Pro, I use Photoshop, I use Lightroom still occasionally. In theory, I'm supposed to use InDesign if I ever start, you know, designing stuff. I use I never remember what it's called. Audology, the sound one. So, also there's a, you know, I will freely admit that there's a buy-in cost, right? Which is I've used Microsoft Excel my entire life. I used it professionally for 30 years. So, or 20 years or whatever. So I know Excel extremely well. So even when I'm using like Google Sheets, I get slowed down and frustrated because Google Sheets doesn't have exactly the same functionality, or it's a little bit different, or how you do a pivot table might be a little bit different. And it does fuck with me. So like, I mean, I get it. There's a sunk cost, which is I know how to use Photoshop. I know how to use Office. But I'm not even paying for that right now. So, everything sure as shit is becoming a subscription. Even my fucking channel is a subscription. So, I can't hate on them too much. I mean, granted, you know, Patreon's always like, raise your rates, raise your prices. You've never raised your prices. And I'm like, I'm good. But well said. I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm not trying to say like Adobe's are like the good guys or anything like that, but like at least they're like providing you with a service, right? As opposed to like truly horrible people who are just taking all your money and giving you no value whatsoever. Oh, okay. 3 different campaigns. Yeah, you know, we tried doing that before because we had just had so many people rotating out. It just burns me out really quickly. You know, I don't know. It's different. I mean, obviously I'm going to be running 5 campaigns at once. I'm going to be running my Fabio Ultimate campaign, One Ring campaign, Avatar campaign, Daggerheart campaign, Blades of Dark campaign. But those are all technically completely different, you know, groups of people. So, we'll see. That will test me to see how, will I like not burned out, but like, will I be able to keep all the different games straight? That'll be challenging. One of the advantages is that, you know, obviously those are very different games. You know, Avatar is very different than Blades in the Dark, which is very different than the One Ring. So there's that advantage. Plus, most of these people have never played these games before, so they won't notice if I fuck something up. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see how it goes. Has anybody used the Daggerheart alchemy thing? I don't know how I'm gonna. I mean, I actually need to figure out how I'm going to run. I actually need to figure out how I'm going to run. Ooh, Daggerheart. I just need to see if this is updated. There's a bunch of stuff here. Daggerheart death moves, Daggerheart animator, Daggerheart HUD, Daggerheart Plus. There's a decent amount of sleek UI, spotlight tracker, splatter, duality dice, GM HUD. I know. I know. I legitimately feel that way. I really do. I want there to be fucking cards. You know? I really do. Is that so horrible? Well, I mean, I know Foundry enough to be minimally useful, you know? Huh. What's up, Apex? Good to see you, buddy.
Apex tipped $10. I was out for a while. Good to be even is alchemy. It's not a VTT, right?
You were out for a while? Yeah, no. Apex alchemy is a VTT. So what's funny about Alchemy VTT Apex is that Alchemy started as a like it was supposed to be kind of like a more you know, like a little bit more like an owlbear rodeo, you know. It was more like a kind of a mic. No, I don't want to say light, but it wasn't like a really super like heavy. It wasn't like Foundry or Roll20. And what ended up happening though is like each release, it was supposed to be like more theater of the mind and more about images and graphics. And then what happened over time is like with each new rollout, it's just they've like, oh, we've added tactical maps. Oh, we've added more focus for tokens. Oh, we've added more stuff for the grid because like that's all their people are asking for. Yeah, it didn't even have maps at one point. You know, it was completely just sort of almost more like a, you know, sort of a theater of the mind, you know, whatever. This is the trailer for the system. It looks like it has built-in. It looks like it has built-in audio video support, which is interesting. I never really think that those are particularly good, but dramatic music helps. You gotta have this playing while your characters make, while your players make characters. But see, the problem I have with this is, which is great until you're like, oh, I want to change what that power does, you know, or I want to change how hit points work in my game, right? Or I want to change how whatever works. And now suddenly you've got to know how to fucking, you know, code. Or maybe you can't even do it. And that's where I get really frustrated with VTTs. Is just like how hard it is to change or modify or integrate or do anything about them. And I've given this example before, but like the one of the reasons I haven't played Legend of the Five Rings on Foundry is because, or on any system, is because the way that you roll and keep in Legend of the Five Rings, I have a house rule, which is that you can get to keep extra, you know, extra dice depending on your skill rank. And all of these systems have this like really robust system for like rolling dice and keeping dice, but they don't let you modify it, so you can't do it. And now you might say, well, Derek, that's why you just don't even need to do that. Just play on Discord. Here's where I'm weird. You know, it's kind of like the way I feel about RPGs in general. Like I've talked about how like I have no problem playing a, you know, dungeon crawler where, you know, you roll everything randomly and your character might die or whatever. But I also love playing like a PBTA game or a Fable Ultimate game where you have these really cool characters, and if you die, you just choose to surrender or whatever. If I'm playing on a VTT, like that is really, you know, not my preferred way of playing. I'd rather play in person. But if I'm going to play on a VTT, I don't want to just play like in a Discord chat and everyone has a character sheet that's like on a Excel spreadsheet that only they can see, and they're just rolling dice that no one else can see. And it's not because of like I don't want them to feel like they're cheating or anything like that. It's because I think that it just completely and maybe this is even an advantage to other people, and maybe that's exactly why it's a problem for me, is because it makes the game too transparent to the other players, whereas I like to be engaged with the game. You know, another way to say it is like when I'm playing, you know, okay, I'm going to close this. Like when I'm playing, Fable Ultima, with my friends on Friday, and again, we play online because we have, one of our players lives in Seattle. And so, you know, it's the only way that we can play. Plus, I think Fable Ultima, it really does benefit from playing online because, you know, we get to use all sorts of cool little JRPG backgrounds and pixel art image and stuff like that. But like when we're playing online, you know, I think it's cool, right, that my group can, you know, see like that, you know, I'm trying to look for a great example of this. Like, I know Tim had a massive hit earlier at some point during the fight. Tim had some massive hit. Scrolling, because I remember there was cheering. You know, much cheering commenced. Here it is. Okay, so Tim Drake, you know, whatever he did his Spellblade Flare, which he can channel through his fists because of his elementalist ability. And so, you know, he hit for 46 fire damage. And the boss was vulnerable to fire damage and, you know, took 92 damage. I think it's cool, you know, that like that people get to see that and get to participate in that. If Tim was just like rolling that locally and then telling people, I don't care if he cheats or not cheats. I'm not worried about that. I just like them. You know, I don't even necessarily need the VTT dice. You know, I don't know that we have I don't think we have Dice So Nice. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think we have. Do we have Dice So Nice installed on this computer? I don't even know if we have. I don't even know if we have Dice So Nice installed on this computer. Let me see something. Okay, we do. Okay. I was like, I don't even remember there being dice. I don't really care about these dice, right? What I care about is, that people can see the number in the chat. They can see the damage. I think that's cool. And I think part of my problem is if I'm playing on a VTT, I think that already takes something away from it. So if I'm going to use it on VTT, I want to be at least leaned in, to that part of the game. Or of the experience, like I want to at least benefit from that. And so, unfortunately, it's the case that when you have these really, yeah, I don't like hate it or I don't love it. Like, I don't love it the way that other people love it. Let's just put it that way. I mean, I know there's some people who absolutely love it. I don't really care. I'm more than content to just see the, 13 versus MDef in the chat window. Like, I'm okay with that. I don't need anything more than that. But all I'm trying to say is, like, if I'm going to play on a VTT, I feel like I'm already giving up so much. I at least want to get something back. And so, like, playing a virtual game where, like, we're playing with Excel spreadsheets for our character sheets and we're just playing in a Discord chat and we're just telling each other what happened, I find that to be like the lowest form of the game, because I want there to be some kind of, integration, seeing other people's roles and all that other stuff. Yeah, well, there you go. That is the better solution for sure. All right, well, this is some kind of fear tracker. That's kind of cool. Oh, nice. I can resize that. That's neat. Now, as an example, this looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Looks like I can go to 12 fear as a maximum. Now, there might be an option in here that lets me configure this. And there is right here, max fear. I can change max fear. I can change the max number of domains, and I can change the max cards in your layout. So that's cool that I can change all this. But imagine if this wasn't here. So, like, props to the Daggerheart people for putting this in here. But keep in mind that, we can only benefit from this because of their desire to add this to the thing. And remember, I didn't pay for this. This is free. So, whatever they give me, right, I have to accept. There's no, let's take a look here. All right, let's create a character. I'm going to create Jacord. All right. Looks like we've got, what do I want to make? It's so funny. I've been thinking, because I really haven't thought about Daggerheart too much, and I've been all of the Daggerheart thinking I've been thinking of has been like my version of Daggerheart with like the 12 classes and the 12 domains. So I'm kind of like, what are these classes? Because I'm like, let's make a wizard, I guess. Can I just drag this on here? I am skipping the character setup by adding this manly. Oh, the character setup is the blinking arrows in the top right. Oh, neat. Okay. Oh. Okay. All right. Okay. This is pretty cool. I mean, I know we did a thing on Foundry Born, but this looks pretty good. I could pick a mixed ancestry. Oh, okay. I will be, what kind of wizard should I be? I will be a ribbit wizard, because that's baller. Ooh, I will be a... What kind of... I'm going to be a wild-born wizard. Suggested, but I can pick whatever I want. Yeah, that looks good. Actually, I'm going to make... There we go. Stress 0. There we go. Knowledge 2, instinct 1, strength -1, finesse 0. Cool. Experience. Let's see here. Survivor of Lower Gook. And then I'll put another one, which is Wanderer of the Desert of Ro. And then Riveting Contact. Nice. Ooh, right. Man. Codex Domain is so cool. I love the Codex Domain. I love the Grimoires. That was so cool. Daggerheart still gets me excited. Shinobi says, what is my 12 class, 12 domain version of Daggerheart? That is my 12 class, 12 domain version of Daggerheart. It is Order, Codex, Grace, Prowess, Cunning, Midnight, Chaos, Elements, or Elemental. Some of these names were never really good. Primal, Blade, Valor, Splendor. And it's you have the Wizard, the Bard, the Social Rogue, the Combat Non-Magical Rogue, Martial Rogue. You have the Shadow Thief type character. You have the Shadow Mage. You have the Sorcerer, the Druid, the sort of Primal Warrior, Barbarian, Berserker maybe type character. And then the Guardian, and then you have the Seraph Paladin, and then we have like the White Mage or the Priests or whatever. You still love the Wizard's Hope ability, even if you don't. Yes, I mean, I don't think that it's like bad. I just think that it's just like not what I think a wizard's ability should be. Oh, my dog moved in right behind me. So you need epic music from the trailer. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have it. Let me log in. Actually, you know what? Let me play the most epic character creation music of all time. There we go. Videos. What the fuck is this? No. Video game. Not fucking Rhyme of the fucking Ice Maiden. What the fuck is that? Nope, that's the whole thing. Can I... What? Man. Internet sucks nowadays. There we go. All right. Now we can go back. I'm not even kidding. This, by the way, this is the character creation music from the Icewind Dale video game from Black Isle Studios, the same people who originally made Baldur's Gate. Yeah, exactly. Search engines suck now. They're so bad. Between sponsorship, paid, whatever, and then obviously AI nonsense, it's just terrible. Now here's a game that I would love to play again is Icewind Dale. Man, picking 2 is tough. They got some really good level 1 stuff for the wizard. Anyways, so Sorry. Shazbot says, I should explain why my druid is superior. I mean, that's a matter of opinion, but sure. So my idea is that I want each of the domains to have a game-like effect that is tied to the tangible manipulation of the fact that your abilities are cards. And so it's actually leaning more into a gamist trope. And then the idea is that multiple classes will interface with that domain, but differently. So my idea for the primal domain is that the primal domain will consist of cards, just like every other domain, but the primal domain would be consisted of double-sided, double-faced cards. And on one side, you would have the Blossom side, and on the other side, you would have the Beast side. And so the Druid would access the primal cards, and then by shape-shifting, the Druid would take their primal cards that were on the Blossom side, and they would flip them over to their Beast side when they went into a wild shape form, or into a shape-shifting form. And that is how they would access that element. So, no. Yeah, okay. I was about to say, like, what are we? No. I meant like for the adventure thing. Actually, no. Actually, I'm not doing something novel and gimmick. You know what I would say? Someone would be like, wait a second. You mean they're like shapeshifters from Magic the Gathering? And I'll be like, yes. They're exactly like shapeshifters from Magic the Gathering. They're exactly like werewolves from Innistrad, where when the creature shapeshifts, you flip the card over, and oh, cool! On the other side of it is the other ability, and so that is my idea. But the thing is that every domain would have a different sort of gamist gimmick, that would sort of do something with the cards. And, obviously I don't have an immediate ultimate solution for this, but, obviously there's a lot of card games out there that I would take, benefit from, but I think that's fun. But I like games and I like gamist stuff. The other thing that I did is, by making it 12 domains and 12 classes, it means that I can use the 6 abilities and use each ability for 2 classes. It also means that you have this kind of left, right, and top-down symmetry. So if you look at the left side, you have a finesse class, or you have a finesse domains, agility domains, might domains, instinct domains, knowledge domains, and presence domains. And then if you look at the right side of this chart, you have a finesse domain, an agility domain, a might domain, an instinct domain, a knowledge domain, and a presence domain. But then if you look top and bottom, you also see the same mirrored symmetry. So you have a might, agility, finesse, knowledge, presence, instinct. And on the bottom, you have a might, agility, finesse, presence, knowledge, instinct. So it creates a little bit more of a balance to the wheel. That I think is kind of interesting. It's not perfect because there's a couple of things that I would ideally kind of sort of want to tweak. But yeah. And part of my idea is that as you get closer to the top and the bottom, they are further apart, whereas along the median, things are more like the same thing, but on the opposite side. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is, like, if we look left to right, blade versus prowess, I actually kind of consider those two things, they're opposite, but they're the same thing. They're just doing it in a very different way. right? So like the idea of like blade is very like martially weapon focused, whereas prowess is a little bit more of like, you're a little bit more less direct. You're more tricky, but you're still kind of doing things martially. You're probably doing stuff with weapons. So it's like this idea of like things being like the same but just different. Whereas top down, you have chaos and order, which I consider to be like diametrically opposed. So the further you go to the middle, the more martial the characters get. Whereas when you get to the top, you get the more spellcastery characters. So, for example, at the top, we have the white mage and the wizard, or the priest and the wizard. And the bottom, we have the sorcerer and the shadow mage guy, for lack of a better name. Whereas in the middle, we have the social rogue, the martial rogue, the sort of the primal warrior, barbarian berserker, and the guardian. The sort of the more regular character, martial characters, normal characters. So there's this idea of like, as you move towards the top and the bottom of the list, whatever. Does Magic assume sleeve cards then? I guess it must. No, it does, Shinobi. However, when you are drafting, let me see here. Innistrad flip card checklist card. So like if you're playing and you don't have your if you do not have sleeves, you actually put one of this into your library instead, and the back of this card is a normal card. It just looks like a normal Magic the Gathering. You mark this card to represent a double-faced card in your library or hand. So like if you had a Delver of Secrets or a Screeching Bat or a Daybreak Ranger or a Gustav Shepherd, you would just mark this with a pen, put this card into your deck, and then when you cast this spell, you would just take the card out of your sideboard and put it into play to sort of represent the place. So they do have a way to deal with that. Anyways, well, this is pretty cool. All right, let me pick some. I'll pick Mending Touch and Book of Ava. Sure. All right, that wasn't bad. Oh, right. So, by the way, that's another thing I would change. Being at 0 hit points is such a weird resonant thing. I hate this is such a weird thing for me where it's like, "Oh, you're at 0 hit points." Oh, no. No, being at 5 hit points would be bad. Which is, if it was called wounds, would be totally fine, but that's not the way hit points work ever and haven't ever worked. So that's such a weird. Like, we understand that gaining stress sounds bad, right? But gaining hit points being bad is such a weird it goes against everything that in your resonance, So, no, actually, tournament at any sort of REL environment, Junderlin, you do have to have sleeves. So, at any sort of competitive rules enforcement level, that's what I was trying to say. REL, any competitive REL event, you do have to have. You don't have to necessarily have them at like FNM, but FNM isn't comp REL. But any comp REL event, you do have to have sleeves. Yeah. All right. A 6 with fear. Oh, that's what I wanted to see. Okay, so what I actually like, actually do like this. I actually like that it doesn't automatically add a fear when I roll with fear. I actually like that. I mean, there might be something where it's like, oh, configure it automatically, which it would be fine. But like, oh, configure automation. Look at that. There you go. I love that this is off by default, but it's also cool that you can turn it on. This is pretty cool. Yeah, I might just end up using Foundry for this. This is pretty good. The other thing is, like, I'm not really concerned about I'm not really concerned about the I'm not really concerned about like range and stuff. Let me do something real quick. Well, at least lighting works. Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, it does like it has range, but like I don't actually care about the range. Like I don't want to play Daggerheart where people are counting squares. And like that is not something that I'm even really concerned about at all. So like okay, but it doesn't seem to like actually care about like tracking if you're in range or anything like that. So that's at least kind of cool. Cuz like I wouldn't even want to play, you know, like my preference would be to not even really use minis. I would prefer to play Daggerheart, just like pure theater of the mind, because I think that that's an easier way to do it. It's weird, and I'll tell you why. Because, like, this is where things can get a little bit weird, which is like if I'm playing a theater of the mind game, okay, and I've talked about this before, but like this is where I think people get messed up. But also, I mean, I don't know, I might be cheating, whatever. I'm not doing it right, but like we talk about like golden opportunities and we talk about soft moves. Okay. So as a soft move, you know, I might say, like, the Goblin Archers advance, okay, and begin, you know, readying to fire. Okay, so like like if we're playing Theater of the Mind, I'm just describing things. We're like imagining this battlefield. There's a small hill, and I describe the goblins emerging from the tree line, and getting their bows out to shoot. Now, what I've done, PBTA wise, is make a soft move, but like someone would be like, "Oh, did you spend a fear for that?" You know, I didn't roll a fear failure. Did you spotlight that adversary? That's weird that you spotlighted that adversary. Why didn't they shoot? And I'm like, well, I didn't spotlight that adversary. That's not spotlighting an adversary. You're like, but they moved. To move an adversary, you have to spotlight them. And I'm like, I'm not spotlighting them. I'm just describing them in the fiction. And like, the problem is like, now some people might already have issues with that, but at least in Theater of the Mind, it feels a little bit more like hand wavy because it's just like all this stuff is happening around you. And you're just describing like, you know, the battle. But like if we were playing on a grid type situation, right, with minis, and I had some, you know, I don't know, whatever, jagged knife bandit over here, okay, and I was like, you know, it can become triune. There, it's a There. it's now the. It's now the. Oh, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Oh, because that's the. God, I hate. This is such a great example of how terrible Foundry is. It's like, no, that's just the picture on the that's just the picture on the character sheet. It's not the picture on the image path, which has to be something different. Blah, 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 whatever. Okay. Anyways, so anyways, you have this creature here, and like, you know, if I've got a bunch of goblins here, and again, I'm not spotlighting them, I'm not activating them, I'm not, you know, whatever the adversary. But if I like move them like this, you know, as I describe them coming closer, people might be like, well, wait, are you spotlighting them? Are you not spotlighting them? Did you spend the fear? Why didn't they shoot? If you spotlighted them, why didn't they shoot? And I'm like, well, I'm not spotlighting them, you know. And I don't know. And again, I've talked about this before, but like, to me, that is the essence. That is how you run a PBTA type game is, and you're keeping all of the monsters engaged in the fiction, and the player's choice to engage or not engage will do a variety of provocations of golden opportunities, which might lead to those those creatures being quote unquote spotlighted and allowing them to take a proper action like shooting at the enemy or shooting at the players. But I'm not really worried, I'm concerned that, not really with the KLC people, because they obviously understand my mentality around it. But like, let me just say, like, when I'm playing Dungeon World, right, I do this all the time because that's literally the way that Dungeon World works, which is that the monsters, quote unquote, don't take a turn. But what I'm saying is that when I think about like Daggerheart, and I think about the way that Daggerheart is presented, I think there's a misunderstanding, perhaps, of the way that the game is designed or presented, in that the quote unquote GM moves there's this kind of weird idea that if an NPC is doing anything, right, you must be spotlighting the adversary, right? And this idea that if an NPC is doing anything, that they are being spotlighted. And I don't necessarily, you know that that's true. You know, but it says, you know, when you make this move, an adversary can move anywhere within close range and perform an action. Okay, fair enough. But like, you know, when I reveal an unexpected danger or an unwelcome truth, or when I signal an imminent threat, or when I make an NPC act in accordance with their motive, or when I show how the world reacts, or when I, you know, make a move the characters don't see, or when I shift the environment, or when I take away an opportunity, or when right, like all of those things might involve NPCs. And so I think that the way that I think this in some ways is like, this move in particular, I think is at the core problem of what I think a lot of people struggle, quote unquote, with and I don't know why this is in book view, when it comes to Daggerheart, because this just screams D&D 5e initiative. The monster gets to take their turn. Wait, why is the monster taking a turn and it's not their turn? What do you mean it's not their turn? Right? So, but, yeah. Anyways. Oh, correct. Cinnabos. That is, if I wanted to be technical about it, I mean, to be clear, Cinnabos, if I wanted to be really technical about it, it wouldn't even matter, because as we know so often, the GM can make a move. Let me check here. Anytime I want. And again, this is where people also, again, lose their minds, because if I'm playing it strictly according to the Daggerheart rules, I might say, we got our wizard down here, okay, right? And our wizard is doing something really cool. And I go, okay, I am going to spotlight. I can make a move whenever I want. I'm going to spotlight this goblin, and this goblin and this goblin and this goblin, and they are all going to move down so that they are, within firing range of you, and they're going to ready their bows to shoot. And they don't. Now, theoretically, I have just taken whatever move I wanted to, which was to technically spotlight an adversary, spotlight an adversary, spotlight an adversary, spotlight an adversary, allowing it to move and attack. I just didn't attack. Why? Well, why wouldn't you attack? It's their turn. You should attack with them. No, because I'm not trying to fucking win. That's not the point. The point is they moved forward and got their bows ready. And I've signaled a threat by spotlighting them, I guess. Whatever, I mean, call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But people want to fit things into these boxes, and they just get so caught up with this idea of a turn. And then once they start thinking about it as a turn, they start thinking about, quote unquote, getting their money's worth, right, for that turn. And again, I don't think this is a problem as much for me. I'm just saying that this is a problem, I think, for the wider, gamut. By the way, if you ever want to see the difference between like color profiles and color correction in cameras and in settings, right? This is my shirt, right? This is the same shirt as this shirt. But look at the color difference between the shirts. My shirt sticking in my dog's. Hello. Same lighting, but color profile difference. Anyways. So again, I'm not worried about this like from like a generic, like from my specific perspective. I'm talking about like generically. Like I'm imagining a world in which my Daggerheart game is being shown to people, like a wider audience, or maybe we did an actual play or whatever. And I'm just imagining people in my comments just like foaming, frothing at the mouth because they just struggle to understand anything that is close to resembling sensible logic because of how this game is actually played versus the way they think it's actually played. Shinobi asks, what kind of dog is that? That is a weird mutant dog. Hi, buddy. Hello. He is a mutt, but he is a good boy. And we love him very much. And he's my weird mutant boy. Buddy, they want to see you. Oh, you're hiding behind my shoulder. Junderlin is quite correct. And Adam says, because Foundry gives the exact distances, I have found that players will get into the habit of counting squares. And I definitely do not want them to do that. I do not, of all the things, there's 1.5 million reasons why combat takes too long in so many games. But the last thing I want to do is have a player be like, okay, I'm going to rush forward. Well, hold on a sec. Let me see. Okay, I'm close. No, I want to be far from them. So I'm going to rush forward. Maybe what if I rush over to here? What if I rush over to here? Okay, I'm far to all. Okay, if that happened in my game, I would immediately be like, okay, hold on a sec. Stop. All right, we're going back to the start screen. Okay, we need to change everything because whatever just happened was unacceptable to me, No, there is not a movement value. I thought you just rolled agility and went Yahoo. Sort of. Per the rules of the game, you can move. I don't know. You can't like literally cross. The idea is that you can move however much you want, but if you're going to move in a way that would be dramatic or difficult, you might have to make an agility test. But again, it also gets back to like the sickness in people's heads where they're like, what am I going to do? Spend my whole turn moving? It's like, well, no, just take your action and then take another action. The GM's like, what if I roll fear with the agility roll? Now the GM gets to move and now my whole turn is ruined. And I'm like, it's just, again, I've literally had a 2-hour conversation one-on-one with Spencer Stark. And he understands. He actually does understand. He understands why this is difficult for me because I just don't know how to communicate in a way that is going to help anybody and or not make people feel bad about themselves or feel like they're some sort of idiot or that I'm some sort of elitist snob know-it-all, which maybe I am, but I don't know. To be clear, I love both the Tor positions, the Tunnels and Troll threat, and I also love my Fabula Ultima rules. The Tunnels and Troll threat system is very compelling. And I really want to explore it more. And I'm looking forward to when they actually, release more than just the quick rules, or whatever, the quick start. But it is a really cool system, and it did kind of blow my mind a little bit. I'm kind of like, that might be kind of, because I've been playing with the Fabula Ultima rules, and we have found that the game has been very delightfully tactical. And there's no grid, and there's no movement, and there's some weird wonkiness, and maybe there's some times where we wish there was a little bit more tactical decisions. But it has been reasonably sufficient. And while I enjoy Theater of the Mind, I really do enjoy Theater of the Mind, I will be the first to admit that it can get a little bit, what are we even doing here? Especially if you have literally no miniatures grid representation. But when you start talking about things like the One Ring and its positional system, when you start talking about the Tunnels and Troll threat system in particular, I find that to be much more compelling. And I think that is potentially a really cool future place for me if I ever create some weird game. Again, I obviously I took their sponsorship, but I went into that thinking like, whatever, But I mean, I know a lot of the old people who love the original system from the 70s or whatever, 80s, were like, oh, this is totally bullshit. I'm like, what? I don't give a shit. I didn't play Tunnels and Troll. All I know is that the new game they made is kind of awesome. So, sure. Yeah, I mean, I would truly try to stay away from the grid in general. And again, I get that people, want a visual representation, but in my experience, the moment you give the tokens and the stuff on the map and the grid, and even if whether it's a blank grid or some sort of battle grid, there is a immediate shift, I think, in the way that people respond and present to the game. I could be wrong. That just might be my personal experience, so I can only speak from my anecdotal experience. But I've run a lot of Theater of the Mind games, like pure Theater of the Mind games, a lot of Dungeon World games that way, with zero representation, zero token-based representation, and I find it grounds people in the fiction, whatever, immerse, I suppose is the term, in a very deep way that even once you start presenting little bits and boops, and I also think once you start presenting bits and boops, people, quite frankly, quite realistically, start approaching the game a little bit more, board gamey and tactical, which is great for games where you want it to be board gamey and tactical, So, I mean, you might be right, but I'm also kind of like, if that's what we need, I don't know that, that's kind of like, yes, it may be solving a problem, but maybe that problem should be dealt with in a different way, Right. That's my idea. That's my hope. Because again, remember when I run PBTA, rightfully so, I am managing the spotlight very aggressively. And I'm managing it like a frenetic editor or director cutting a movie scene, but I'm also doing something where I'm paying attention to the people and the scene, and I'm trying to see, what people are doing. And I will sometimes cut the spotlight over to somebody just because I think they're not ready, or they don't think they're going to get called on. And I call on them because it's going to create an emotional moment for them to feel like, oh man, I'm not ready. Oh, so I'm trying to mirror, those emotions. I'm trying to create a very a Timmy experience, and it's not an immersionist moment exactly. It's more of like which it might. I mean, you could call it an immersionist moment. That's fine, but I'm not really trying to do that. I'm really trying to create more of an emotional moment for the player. Right? That's the key. So, and yeah, but again, it's not about counting squares or about range. Like that's totally fine. Daggerheart, right, uses the card, right? Like if it's the short end of the card or the long end of the card or whatever, or a character sheet, like that's fine. I just don't want anybody to do that. So, okay. I don't play, I'm using the term immersion and I really shouldn't because that really means something. So, Mark Rosewater, talks about the player psychological profiles of Magic the Gathering, and they talk about the Timmy. And for a long time, I kind of dismiss the Timmy. And found myself becoming more of a Timmy. And the reason why Timmies play games is because they want to experience something. They want to feel something. For me, it's not necessarily about immersion. Okay. And you know what? In fact, I'll take a page out of, who said it? Oh my God. I was giving them massive props for it the other day. It's not immersion, it's engagement, right? It's not immersion, it's engagement. Verisimilitude, is that the long ass V word you're thinking about? So again, it's not about verisimilitude. It's not about being like immersed. It's about being engaged. It's about, right. Yeah. So if anything, it's not about being immersed in the character or in the world. It's about being engaged in the game, you know? So Garblight calls it rule set immersion, maybe, you know? Yeah. So that's what I want. I want that engagement. Oh shit. Did you? Okay. Yep. Okay. You did. All right. Yeah. Perfect. Pumpkin said it great. I think rather than immerses, it engages. Yes. Now that's what I want, right? And I want there to be no, I mean, using immersion I should not use that term. That was me using the term incorrectly, because I do think immersion means something very specific in the context of a role-playing game, right? But if you say, you know, if I told you like, oh, you know, they got really immersed into their knitting project, you wouldn't say, oh, they thought they were the yarn, you know, and they were like imagining what it would be like to be the yarn and the needles. No, like that's not what you mean, right? The generic term of immersed means that you are just highly engaged and really vibing with, you know, you're in the zone, you know, you're in that flow state, you're in to your hobby, right? You're not looking at your phone because you're really immersed in your knitting. That doesn't, in generic parlance, that doesn't mean you now think you're, you know, a scarf. But in role-playing games, that is kind of what immersion means. Kind of. So, or at least that's the way people use it. So it is a fraught term to use. Oh. Anyways, I don't know. We got off on this massive tangent. Oh, you know what? While we're here, we might as well look at this. Back to the Forge. Okay, so my Avatar Legends is updated. All right, let's. No, it's fine. We're all tired. I'm very tired. Wait, what? 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 This Foundry is updated. Well, all right. I'll figure this out later. I don't know what that's actually telling me. Hey, what's up? Wondering if you were going to Origin / doing any meetup thing there. So what we're actually doing, I actually have my own room at Origins. We have an exclusive VIP lounge for members of our crew, our Patreon. So we are actually going to be, we basically have, at the convention center, we have our own room. We've got about 40 or so Knights of Last Call members who are going to be there Wednesday through Sunday. We're going to be running games and, you know, community games, and people are going to be running board games. Like I'm going to be running a Blighted Reach game of Arcs, maybe some other board games. I still have to figure out what I need to do because there's still 3.5 weeks. No TI as far as I can tell. But so yeah, I'm going to be there. I am going to have a room. It is for our patrons. It's for our. There is a sign up sheet that you have to do for because I had to pay several thousands of dollars to get that room, but I will be there. I think we're room B259 question mark. I'd have to double check, but we're in the second floor of the B pod. Yes, engagement over immersion is partly why I love Rainer Knizia games. He focuses on making games that are built around player engagement and provoke it. And I absolutely love Rainer Knizia games, and I do find them to be very highly engaging. Keep room B2, keep on the Borderlands. Yeah, basically. I didn't think about that. That's funny. But yeah, so that's kind of the play. That's the plan for Origins. But anyways, I don't know. Maybe I won't even worry about this alchemy thing. I mean, how much does it cost? I hate how things just don't tell. So you have to buy it. You have to buy it for $45. But it's a one-time price. But you have to buy it per edition. So like if I wanted to run something else on Alchemy, like Blaze in the Dark, I would have to buy it for $25. I mean, that does look pretty sweet though, doesn't it? Now, the last time I ran Blaze in the Dark, I ran it on Roll20. Actually, I mean, that looks kind of sweet. This is tough. No, Alchemy is not a 3D VTT. I don't know how to describe Alchemy. I've not used it. I'm just aware of it. It exists. I don't even know if I have. I don't even know if I have. Nope, apparently I do not. It wants me to create a password, so I guess I don't even have an account. But it's like you buy a system and then you can use it, is how I understand it. But I think it was originally pitched as like more like kind of like more like one more multiverse, where it was kind of like a really like. Yeah, exactly. Not another multiverse or whatever it was called. Yes. Although apparently they went out of business, but then they like came back from business or something, right? One more. Like I think it's like free now or something. Something. Okay, yeah. So now it's a subscription model, and you have to log in. You have to be a member of their Patreon thing. Yeah, like they moved to like a pay version or something. But like I guess maybe my thing. But it used like pixel art, and it looked really cool. And you would like create different like game things, and I don't know if. Yeah, it looks like this is. Not loading? I don't. You have one free verse. I guess make this my free verse. Yeah, sure. You must have a Patreon subscription. Confirm. Okay. All right. Well, I guess you have to have a Patreon. Oh, well, maybe it's working. Okay, there we go. Oh, hey. Looks like it's working. Hey, there we go. Yeah, so this is what Blades in the Dark looks like on One More Multiverse. And I did have a Blades in the Dark game set up here, which is because I was like, I backed them originally, so I guess apparently I can have these. But like, so maybe I'll use this instead since this is working. But you have all the different districts. Like this is Crow's Foot, and you have Silk Shore, Chatter Hall. Down here you have Night Market, Coleridge, Dunslow, 6 Towers. This is actually the district of Duskwall I know the best because I've had 2 different crews that operated out of 6 Towers or had their HQ in 6 Towers. One person had their HQ like right here. Very cool. Make a test character. So you can like do stuff, add stuff. I think. I don't know exactly. Oh no, I don't want to do this. Nope, I don't want to do that either. Roll dice. Oh yes, there you go. Select the character. You can select an action. I want to do, you know, this hunt, devil's bargain, position. It's going to be controlled. Great. Add a die. So, yeah, very cool. So this might work really well. Yeah, you can add clocks really easily right up here. So I can have a red clock. I can call it like what are they called? The crow's feet. Oh, no, that's not what they're called. What are they called? What are the red sashes? There we go. The red sashes attack. We'll make that a 6 o'clock, and I'll tick it once, and then the red sashes attack, and then make it a 6 o'clock, and make it red, and tag it once, and hit create. There we go. Now we've got this clock here. We're in free play mode, so we can move into a score. Choose your approach. We're going to do stealth operation. Provide the point of infiltration. We come in through the sewers. And then as a player, you would go and choose your load, and then we do our engagement roll. We've got 3 advantages. We got a 4 is our highest, so we start at a risky position. Yeah, I mean, if this is still working, and I don't have to pay any money, because apparently I got my one free one because I still had it from back when I originally signed up for it. It's got little cool details, like see how the lightning towers, but see how it's like kind of pixel arty, which is cool. I like that it's kind of pixel arty. But then you can also create different levels, right? Like I can create an interior, you know, the inn, and then you can make it like here, and then it goes to that inn. Oh, maybe I do have to pay for it. I don't know. And to avoid getting all these stupid trailers. I mean, whatever. You know, listen, I just told you I had $1,200. I pay $1,200 a month for software as a service, and shit like this is why. Anyways, but then you can like do stuff like now. This is where the game becomes almost like a fucking video game, because like you can put NPCs in here, and then the players can like literally walk around and then like interface with the NPCs and like talk to them and have them do like little dialogue snippets, and ain't nobody got time for that. So you know, that's where I start to draw the line. Right, like see, like I can take this NPC here, like a blue coat here, and see, like I can put him into the scene, you know, and then if you come up to him and talk, you can like talk to him and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I don't got time for that, you know. Like, so people have much more time than you know, than I do, you know. But anyways, point is, I think this is supposed to be our character. It's like the default character, but yeah, see, like I can control him using WASD, right? I'm using arrow keys to move him around the scene. Oh, hey, what's going on? So very cool. Maybe just more than one, but yeah, this is very sweet. So I'm glad to see that they didn't go out of business. And more importantly, I'm glad that I didn't, because I paid money for this. I think I was part of their backstrap. I don't exactly remember what I was part of, but then I remember they went out of business, and I was like, well, get fucked. Make a port, and then like as a GM, right? So this is like a door, And if you see here, like I can make this into a portal, I can make this into a secret door or whatever. God damn it, my FOMO. So, I mean, anybody who saw my, Torchbearer games knows I try to create, a cool immersive experience, for people when they play, especially in the games that I run for patrons, because that's a little different. I will admit, Fab Ultima, is cool, it's fun, I like to do it. That's for my friends, and don't get me wrong, I want them to have a cool experience too. But in theory, like the games that I'm running for my patrons are supposed to be, I mean, you're not technically paying for them, but you are most of these people are higher level patrons, so you're paying some amount of money. And so I have I go out of my way to try to make them look cool and look nice and be a cool experience. So yeah, I might have to use my one more multiverse setup. But like like this, this was the Torchbearer setup, right? Where I created like this whole inventory system, and so like you can move around your you can move your stuff around. I don't know why it is showing that. It shouldn't be showing that, but it's probably got updated. But so like as a player, and then all of these things here, like this is tied to Amos Sheepscar, but this is all being run by so many VTTs. Exit game. Okay, thank you. Okay, good, cool. Settings, mod API. Yeah, so like I had all of this. Like these are all the like this is all the JavaScript that I wrote for this Roll20 application. So this is all JavaScript that I wrote. Now, to be fair, this is terrible JavaScript because it all references individual IDs. So it literally only works for this particular thing. But I mean, some of this stuff doesn't work, like this helper function, and there's this listen for changes to attributes and all this other stuff. But all of this stuff here, all this JavaScript that I wrote here is designed to run that game. In theory. Does it actually work? It used to. I don't know if it still does. There's a couple of things I'm noticing here that are a little bit weird. But yeah, so like, because Torchbearer is all about slots and slot management, obviously our game ended when Tane doesn't have anything. But like you can see that like, Amos had a backpack on, and the backpack takes up 2 slots, because these are his chest slots. So his backpack takes up his chest slots, and the backpack gives him this 6 slots of backpacks for his items. So he's got 1 stack of preserve rations that can hold up to 3 per stack. It's down to 1. He's got 1 flask of holy water. He's got a stack of copper or gold coins worth 1 die, copper coins probably. He has a spider silk rope, 50-foot coil, and he also has a small sack. Now the small sack doesn't worth anything, but like you can see like Bob has a Carnilos has a quiver on his belt, right? So you get 3 belt slots, and Carnilos has a belt pouch and a quiver. A quiver takes up 2 slots. Well, the belt pouch is why he has this belt pouch equipment slot, and then the quiver is why he has these 2 quiver slots for his arrows and stuff like that. So, and of course, all the other players, because the thing is what made this game interesting is I didn't put anything on the characters. So like if you go to the character sheets, yeah. So if you go to the character sheets, like if we look at Bob's character sheet, obviously he has his character information here, but if you go to his equipment, like none of that is actually up to date. Like a lot of people just filled this stuff out, and yeah, so like see, like Amos Sheepscar doesn't have anything on his actual character equipment. All of the equipment was actually on the battle grid, right? Because now my players never saw this, because anything outside of the gray is only visible to the GM. So this is all the extra tokens that I made for armor and equipment and different things that they would find: water, wine, helmets, stuff like that. And then these are all the different scenes that I could drag in to. So if I went to the map layer, I think, yeah. So like if I went to the map layer, I could. This is how I would swap out, right? Like where they're at. So now they're back in the dungeon. And of course, Torchbearer uses the 3-card rock paper scissors system. And then this is like the torch tracker system, and this is the this is the grind clock. So these are what all these macros do here at the bottom. So like when I grind the clock, like it makes like the torches tick down and the grind increases and all this other stuff. Anyways, it was fun. It was fun. And by the way, you can watch this on YouTube. We have our game on YouTube. This game in particular is on YouTube, and our other game is visible through our Patreon. But this was really fun. Really fun. Lot to cool. It's funny. It's fun that I can remember all of these different locations and what they were in the dungeon. Here is a bunch of monsters. Skeletons, kobolds, bugbear, zombies, the golem guy that they fought in the Hall of the Animated Statue. That was a cool encounter. Yeah, cool stuff. The infamous Jade statue. Do we have Kurt's headless body still? That was always funny. I don't know where it would be. But there was the kid's body that they found at the bottom of the pit that they were trying to recover for a long time, and they just had his headless form. That was funny. Oh, there it is. There it is. Good old Kurt's body. In fact, Amos was the one who had this. He had this stuffed in his backpack for a long time. Dennis, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, buddy. Oh yeah, Junderlin, right there. Look at this. Undead salt. That's Boothby's got his belt pouches. He's got both of his belt pouches filled with undead salt. Undead salt pack 1. Undead salt pack 1. That's hilarious. Oh man. Yes, good old Kurt's dead body. Anyways, all right, everybody. It's 5 a.m, so I'm gonna go. I don't know if I'll be online for tomorrow night. I mean, at some point I have to take a break and I don't know, take care of stuff in my actual life. But you know what? I love RPGs and I love geeking out with you guys. And now I'm like, oh, now I'm excited because now I got to go figure out how this fucking thing works and do I want to use this alchemy thing or not and figure out the Daggerheart. Although the Foundry-born thing looks really amazing. I'm really, really pleased with that. And, you know, but I do still have to figure out where I'm going to run Avatar. So if anybody's had any experience running Avatar on Foundry or some other system, let me know in comments below or ping me on the Discord. I will say, the one thing I am very sad about, I think the One Ring, the free Foundry is nice. It's cool. It's awesome. But Free League always has done such amazing, incredible, premium paid Foundry modules. And they didn't do one for the One Ring, I'm guessing because of the license. And that makes me so very sad because, God, I would have loved their Dragonbane module, their Forbidden Lands module, like their Coriolis module. They're all so awesome and so pretty. And they're like, you know, $25, $30 or something. Sometimes you get them on sale for $20 or something, $15. They're so worth it. I would happily pay $50 for a premium Foundry module for any game, by the way. And I just wish more companies would be willing to do that. So, all right, folks, I will talk to you next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody. Peace.